Vanessa didn't ask me quietly. That part matters. She stood at the end of the long hotel table, with one hand resting on the back of my chair, and said, "Ruth, would you mind moving to that little table? The family table is full." The little table was near the service doors, tucked behind a square column and set for two people who apparently weren't coming. My coffee had just arrived. Daniel sat 3 seats away with his tie loosened and his new wedding ring catching the light whenever he lifted his orange juice. I looked at him. He looked at Vanessa, at the relatives waiting behind her, then back at me. "Mom," he said, sliding my coffee a few inches in my direction. "It's only breakfast. Please don't make this awkward." I remember thinking there must be another mother somewhere inside me, one who would say the right cutting thing, a woman who could make the whole table go silent with 6 perfect words. Instead, I picked up my cup. The handle was hot, and Daniel knew I had arthritis in my right thumb. That was what I thought about as I carried it away. 18 hours earlier, he had knocked on my hotel room door holding a boutonniere in one hand and a packet of antacids in the other. "Tell me this doesn't look crooked. You don't even have it on yet." The jacket. The whole jacket. Daniel turned sideways in the doorway as though I were a tailor inspecting a difficult seam. At 39, he still made the same face he had made at 19 when he brought home a used car with a smoking exhaust and asked whether I thought the sound was normal. The jacket looked fine, better than fine. Dark navy, narrow through the waist, expensive enough that he had hidden the receipt from himself after buying it. "You look handsome," I said. "That's not useful. You look handsome, and your left cuff is folded under." He fixed it immediately. "See? Useful." He stepped into my room without asking, which was one of those little liberties I loved because I had spent years pretending not to. My room was on the 4th floor of the hotel's older wing, at the far end of a hallway that smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and somebody's perfume. Vanessa's family had most of the 3rd floor around the bridal suite. I had been told the separation would give me more peace. So far, peace sounded like the ice machine dropping a load every 11 minutes. Daniel looked at the room, taking in the garment bag over the desk chair, my silver shoes by the bed, and the room service tray I had forgotten to put outside. "You ate already?" "I had toast. There's a lunch downstairs." "I know. I'm saving room." "For what?" "Lunch." He smiled despite himself. For a moment, he was simply my son on an ordinary afternoon, nervous and trying not to show it. Then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, and his face changed before he even read the message. His shoulders went up. His mouth tightened. "Vanessa? Her Aunt Denise can't find the steamer. The steamer is in Caroline's room. Your sister has it. My sister is using it. She said anyone who wanted steam had to come to her." Daniel stared at me. "Why would she say that?" "Because your Aunt Caroline has spent 67 years preparing for the day she could establish a steam dictatorship." He laughed, but only for half a second. His thumbs were already moving over the screen. "Tell Denise to take the green elevator," I said. "2nd floor, turn left. Caroline's in 214. Why is Caroline on the 2nd floor and you're all the way up here?" I looked at him. He looked back at me. The question sat between us long enough to become a different question. Finally, I said, "She booked her own room." "Oh." Daniel shoved the phone into his pocket. "I'm sorry about this, Wing. Vanessa thought you liked quiet. I do like quiet. I told her you did. I know you did." The thing about Daniel was that he rarely lied outright. He built small bridges over the truth and hoped everyone would use them. He walked to the window and looked down at the lawn where workers were setting up white chairs for the ceremony. Beyond them, the lake flashed between oak trees. The hotel called itself a resort, though it had one tennis court with a crack running through it and a spa that shared a wall with the laundry room. From my window, the wedding looked like a dollhouse scene. People in black uniforms moved tiny baskets and straightened tiny ribbons. Vanessa had spent 14 months arranging every detail, then spent the last 2 weeks discovering that details developed free will when observed. "She's overwhelmed," Daniel said. I imagine she is. She wants everything to be right. I know. And her family is numerous? He turned. I was going to say intense. You always were polite. That's how you raised me. No, I raised you to say thank you when someone feeds you. The rest you picked up somewhere. He smiled again, but this one didn't stay. Mom, about the reading. There it was. I sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to wrinkle my dress, though I wasn't wearing it yet. What about it? Denise is going to do it. Denise, who can't find the steamer? She and Vanessa are close. She's her godmother. I thought Vanessa's godmother was Lorraine. She calls Denise her godmother. Is Lorraine aware of the reassignment? Mom, I'm just trying to keep up. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. Vanessa didn't realize how much it meant to Denise. Apparently, Denise read the same passage at Vanessa's parents' vow renewal. Then she has experience. You're not upset? I had been given the reading in January. I had practiced it in my kitchen until I could say the last 2 lines without my voice catching. Daniel knew that because he had walked in on me once, standing between the sink and the dishwasher with my reading glasses sliding down my nose. But he looked so relieved already. No, I said, it's their ceremony. His shoulders dropped. Thank you. Don't thank me like I just donated a kidney. I knew you'd understand. That sentence had become his little key. He used it whenever he needed access to a part of me he didn't want to knock on. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. You know you don't need a reading. You're my mother, as opposed to Denise, your steamless god-aunt. He snorted. That's not a thing, it is now. For a minute, we sat looking at the ugly floral print over the dresser. Daniel smelled like aftershave and mint. Underneath that, I caught the faint wool smell of his new suit, warm from his body. I wish Dad was here, he said. It came out so softly that I almost missed it. I reached for his hand. He turned his palm up and held on. Me too. What do you think he'd say? About the wedding? About all of it. My husband Frank had been dead 5 years, which was long enough for people to speak about him as if death had sanded away his irritating qualities. It had not. Frank would have complained about the price of parking, worn the wrong socks, and disappeared during photographs because he had found a man near the kitchen who knew something about lawnmowers. He'd say your jacket looks crooked, I told Daniel. Daniel laughed with his whole face then, the way he used to. He would. And then he'd cry so hard he'd blame the pollen. There's no pollen in October. That wouldn't stop him. His phone buzzed again. This time he stood before checking it. I have to go. Of course. We'll have time tomorrow morning. Breakfast is supposed to be relaxed. Just family. He bent and kissed my cheek. I touched his sleeve before he could turn away. Daniel. Yeah? I nearly told him that I was tired of being the person who understood. The words rose cleanly and clearly. Then I saw the antacids in his hand and the dampness still shining at the corners of his eyes. Your cuff, I said. He fixed it and left. At lunch, Caroline took one look at me and said, What did he ask you to give up? My sister was a year younger than I was and had been treating that year as evidence of my advanced decline since we were in our 30s. She wore a deep green pantsuit, large gold earrings, and enough hairspray to protect her from weather. Nothing, I said. Your face has the same look it had when you loaned me your blue sweater, and I washed it on hot. You were 16. I'm describing the look, not opening an investigation. We were standing near a buffet covered with tiny sandwiches. The ballroom had been divided by rolling walls, and somewhere on the other side, a vacuum cleaner started and stopped. Denise is doing the reading, I said. Caroline put down the sandwich she had just picked up. That Denise, how many do you know? None personally, but I know all I need to know about that one. You steamed her dress. I permitted her to use my steamer under supervision. That woman presses down like she's punishing fabric. I reached for a sandwich. Caroline moved the plate closer to me. You practiced that reading. It's fine. It isn't fine. It's not my wedding. No, but Daniel is your son. People were moving around us carrying garment bags, bouquets, makeup cases, and drinks with slices of fruit floating in them. Vanessa's mother, Marjorie, swept past in a pale blue robe with the word "me" embroidered on the back in silver thread. For half a second, I thought it meant organized crime. Caroline watched her go. "Did you get a robe?" "I don't want a robe." That wasn't my question. I brought my own clothes. Caroline looked at me the way sisters do when they have known your evasions longer than your dignity. Before she could answer, Vanessa came through the ballroom doors. Even unfinished, she was beautiful. Her hair was pinned up but not yet arranged, and she wore a white button-down shirt over satin shorts, carrying her shoes by the straps. Without the practiced wedding smile, she looked younger, more tired, and far less certain. "Ruth, thank God," she said. Caroline murmured, "Here we go." Vanessa didn't hear her. "I need to ask you something, and I feel terrible." She did look terrible about it. That was the problem. Vanessa's guilt often arrived before the thing she wanted, like a waiter setting down silverware. "What is it?" I asked. "The brooch." My hand went automatically to my purse, where Frank's mother's pearl brooch rested inside a small velvet box. Daniel had asked me to wear it months earlier. It had been his grandmother's, and before that, hers. Vanessa touched my arm. "It's lovely. It really is. But the photographer thinks it might catch the light in the family portraits. With the beading on your dress, it could look busy." Caroline made a sound in her throat. Vanessa glanced at her, then back at me. "I know Daniel wanted you to wear it." "So did I said. Her fingers tightened slightly on my sleeve. Across the room, Daniel appeared in the doorway. He saw the three of us together, saw Vanessa's hand on my arm, and slowed. He knew. I waited to see which way he would walk. For one moment, it honestly looked as if he might come to me. Then Vanessa turned her head, and Daniel changed direction. Daniel walked toward Marjorie. She had stopped near the ballroom doors and was gesturing urgently at the ribbon tied around one of the flower baskets. Whatever she said made him bend to inspect it. Vanessa followed my eyes. For the first time, her expression lost its careful apology. "He has a lot going on," she said. "So do you. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings." Caroline folded her arms. "That's usually something people say when they want credit for knowing feelings exist." "Caroline," I said. "No, it's okay." Vanessa let go of my sleeve. "I understand she's protective." "She's also standing right here," Caroline said. Vanessa closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, she looked exhausted rather than offended. "The photographer asked us to keep jewelry simple." My mother took off a necklace she loves. Marjorie's necklace had 6 rows of blue stones and looked heavy enough to alter her posture. "I'm sure that was a sacrifice," Caroline said. I touched her elbow. "Could you get me some water? There's water behind you. Then it should be easy." Caroline gave Vanessa a long look before walking all of 4 feet away. I lowered my voice. "You don't have to manage my sister. I'm not trying to manage anyone." That was so plainly untrue that we both almost smiled. Vanessa looked down at the shoes dangling from her hand. "I know the brooch matters. Daniel told me about his grandmother." "Then you know it isn't just jewelry." "Yes. But you still want me to take it off." Her chin lifted a fraction. "I want the pictures to look like the pictures we planned." There it was, not mean, not shouted, not disguised particularly well. Vanessa had a picture in her mind, and anything that caught the light unexpectedly had to be moved. I opened my purse and took out the velvet box. When I lifted the lid, the brooch looked smaller than I remembered. 4 seed pearls formed a circle around a cloudy center stone. Frank's mother had worn it on winter coats, church dresses, and once, for reasons known only to her, a bowling shirt. It was not elegant enough to threaten a photograph. Vanessa stared at it. "That's the brooch? What were you expecting?" "I don't know. Something bigger." Caroline returned with a glass of water. "Call the photographer. The emergency has passed." Vanessa's face reddened. "I only saw it in the picture Daniel sent. "It looked busy?" I asked. She pressed her lips together. I should have made her say it. Instead, I closed the box and returned it to my purse. "You have enough to worry about today," I said. Relief softened her whole body. "Thank you, Ruth." Behind her, Daniel was still examining the ribbon with Marjorie. He didn't look over. Vanessa squeezed my hand. "I mean it." Then someone called her name from the hallway and she hurried away in her satin shorts, still carrying her shoes. Caroline waited until Vanessa was out of sight. "Put it on." "No." "Why not?" "Because now it would be a declaration." "It should be a declaration." "I don't want to declare anything at my son's wedding. You'd rather be erased politely?" I picked up my water. "That's dramatic." "It's accurate. Those are not the same thing." Caroline leaned closer. "Ruth, if one more person tells you that you're easygoing, I'm going to throw a chair. It would have to be one of those folding chairs. I don't think you could lift the hotel ones." That got her. Her mouth twitched, though she fought it. "I hate when you use humor to make me less right," she said. "I've had decades of practice. You have had decades of making things easier for everybody except yourself." The vacuum started again behind the ballroom wall. It made a whining turn, bumped something, and stopped. Caroline picked up the sandwich she had abandoned. "That machine has better boundaries than you." I left the brooch in its box. Back in my room, I dressed alone. I had assumed there would be women coming and going, someone asking for safety pins or lipstick, but the fourth floor remained quiet except for the ice machine. My dress was mauve, though Vanessa called it dusty rose. It had a beaded neckline that caught almost no light at all. I put on the silver shoes, took them off, rubbed the spot above my left heel, and put them on again. Frank used to say women's formal shoes were proof that civilization had taken a wrong turn. At 3:15, I rode the elevator down with a man carrying 2 lampshades and a woman in a hotel uniform holding a bag of towels. Neither asked whether I was part of the wedding. I was grateful, then annoyed with myself for being grateful. The ceremony site had filled quickly. White chairs stood in neat rows facing the lake. A violinist played near the oak tree, and the breeze lifted the pages on her music stand. An usher I didn't know checked his list. Bride's side or groom's side? Groom's mother. His eyes widened. "Oh, yes. Of course." He ran one finger down the page. I watched him fail to find whatever he expected to find. Caroline appeared behind me. "She's sitting with me." The usher looked relieved enough to kiss her. Our seats were in the first row on the left, though the aisle seat had been marked for an elderly uncle of Vanessa's who needed more room for his leg. Caroline and I moved inward without discussion. Marjorie sat across the aisle in the first row on the right, surrounded by 3 sisters, Denise, and a woman who seemed to be carrying everyone's tissues. "Interesting," Caroline murmured. "Don't." I didn't say anything. "You said it with your eyebrows. My eyebrows aren't under your authority." The music changed. Daniel came out with the officiant and stood beneath the oak tree. The moment he saw me, his face opened. Not dramatically, just a quick nervous smile that belonged entirely to me. I smiled back. That was the trouble. Love did not wait for fairness. It moved first and asked questions later. Vanessa came down the aisle on her father's arm. Everyone stood, and all the small injuries of the day fell away for a moment. She wore a simple ivory dress with sleeves of fine lace. Her veil moved in the breeze, and her face held none of the polished control I had come to expect. She looked terrified. When she reached Daniel, he took both her hands. He said something I couldn't hear. Vanessa laughed, then cried immediately afterward. Caroline slipped a tissue into my hand. The ceremony was warm and imperfect. The officiant called Daniel David once. A gust of wind blew Vanessa's veil across his face during the vows, and he stood there under a cloud of tulle until she pulled it away. Even Denise's reading was not the catastrophe Caroline had predicted. She rushed the first paragraph and misplaced a pair of glasses halfway through, but her voice steadied at the end. I knew every word. I said them silently with her. When Daniel put the ring on Vanessa's finger, I felt Frank's absence so sharply that I turned toward the empty space beside me. For half a heartbeat, I expected his hand to be there, palm up, waiting. Caroline took mine instead. After the ceremony came the photographs. The photographer was a cheerful man named Brett, who moved people with the brisk confidence of someone arranging furniture before a storm. Bride's immediate family. Right over here. Groom's immediate family. Stay close. We're going to move fast. I stayed close. Then I moved closer. Then farther left. Brett placed Vanessa's parents beside her, Daniel beside Vanessa, and me beside Daniel. Denise drifted into the frame. So did two of Vanessa's aunts. Caroline stood well outside the arrangement, watching. "Okay, everybody squeeze," Brett said. We squeezed. "Ruth, could you angle your shoulder?" "Perfect. A little more." "Great." A late-arriving cousin stepped into the group. Brett made a concerned noise. "Actually, Ruth, let's put you on the end. Taller people toward the middle." I was 5'4". Denise was shorter than I was, but she remained beside Marjorie. I stepped to the end. Daniel glanced at me. I waited. He looked toward Brett's camera. "Big smiles," Brett called. The shutter clicked 6 times. Then Vanessa turned. "Wait, we need one with Ruth and Daniel." Brett lowered the camera. "Absolutely." Daniel looked surprised. I probably did too. Vanessa reached for my wrist and pulled me back toward him. Just the two of them first. For a confusing second, gratitude flooded me so fast it was embarrassing. Daniel put his arm around my shoulders. Brett lifted the camera. "Beautiful. Mom, look at your son." I did. Daniel looked at me and his expression changed. The wedding smile fell away. His eyes filled. "Oh, don't you start," I whispered. "You started. I haven't done anything. Your face is doing something." "What is my face doing?" "The mom thing. What mom thing?" "That." Brett kept taking pictures while we argued softly. Daniel kissed my temple. The shutter caught it. Later, that photograph would become the one everyone said was their favorite. At the reception, I was seated at table 4 with Caroline, 3 of Daniel's work friends, and a couple from Vanessa's mother's garden club. Vanessa's parents sat at the head table with the newlyweds. I had known about the seating arrangement in advance. Daniel had explained that the head table needed to be balanced. Caroline looked at the place cards, then at the long table across the dance floor. Balanced? How? Don't start. I'm asking from an engineering perspective. One of Daniel's co-workers laughed into his napkin. Dinner was chicken with a sauce nobody could identify. The garden club husband guessed mustard. His wife said apricot. Caroline said wallpaper paste and ate all of hers. During the speeches, Marjorie spoke for 11 minutes. She told stories about Vanessa's childhood, college years, first apartment, and devotion to family. When she mentioned Daniel, she called him the son we always knew we'd find. Caroline turned slowly toward me. I kept my eyes on my water glass. Daniel's best friend gave a funny, affectionate speech. Denise gave an unexpected second speech. Vanessa's father cried before he reached the microphone and never entirely recovered. There was no speech from me because nobody had asked for one. That should not have mattered. I had not expected one. Still, when the band leader announced the first dance, I found myself pressing my thumb against the empty place on my dress where the brooch would have been. Daniel and Vanessa moved onto the floor. They were not good dancers, which made them lovely to watch. Daniel counted under his breath. Vanessa kept laughing whenever he turned the wrong way. Halfway through the song, Daniel caught my eye. He smiled. I smiled back. Then Marjorie came to stand beside me and said, "Everything turned out perfectly, didn't it?" I looked at Daniel holding his new wife beneath the warm lights. "Almost," I said. Marjorie tilted her head. "Almost." "The candles," I said. One of them went out. She followed my gaze toward the head table, where a single candle had indeed surrendered beneath the air conditioning. "Oh." She touched my arm. "You notice everything." Not everything, I thought. The band leader invited Daniel and me to the dance floor after the first dance. We had chosen the song together weeks earlier, though chosen was a generous word for what happened. Daniel sent me a list of 12 songs selected by Vanessa, and I picked the one I disliked least. The opening notes began while the server was still moving Marjorie's chair out of the way. Daniel came toward me with one hand extended. "May I?" "You may. I'm warning you, I used up everything I know on Vanessa. I saw. You turned left at least twice. She told me to. You married a reckless woman." He laughed and put his hand at my waist. Daniel had grown taller than Frank by the time he was 17, but some part of me still expected his head to fit beneath my chin. Now I had to look up at him. The room dimmed beyond his shoulder. People held phones in the air. A few couples at the tables leaned close to speak over the music. "You okay?" he asked. My shoes are instruments of torture. I meant emotionally. Those are my emotions. He guided me through a slow turn. "Thank you for today. You've said that already." "I know. I mean it. You're welcome. For the reading and the brooch and everything. I missed a step." Daniel steadied me. "Sorry. You didn't do anything." His eyes flicked away. "Vanessa told me." "Of course she did. She thought it was bigger." "I know. I should have said something." There were a dozen answers available to me. "Yes, you should have." "Why didn't you?" "What exactly did you think when you walked away?" Instead, I said, today wasn't the day for an argument. His relief was immediate. It came before he could hide it, and for the first time that day, I was angry with him. The song reached the end of its first verse. I waited for the chorus. The part Daniel had once said reminded him of Sunday mornings when Frank played records too loudly. The music faded. Applause rose around us. I looked toward the band. The band leader was already announcing the cake cutting. "That was short," Daniel said. Across the floor, Vanessa stood beside the cake table, motioning for him to come. The photographer waved too. Daniel kissed my forehead. "We're behind schedule. I'll make it up to you." "How?" He was moving away before I finished asking. Caroline appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "I timed that," she said. 1 minute and 28 seconds. "You did not." She showed me the timer on her phone. "Why would you do that?" "Because I saw the band leader talking to Vanessa." I took one of the glasses. "The speeches went long." "Yes." "Because apparently Denise required an encore." "Let it go." "I would, but you keep picking it back up and carrying it for everyone." I drank too quickly. Bubbles climbed into my nose. Caroline watched me cough. Elegant. "Thank you." "I'm serious, Ruth." "I know. That's the exhausting part." The cake cutting became the bouquet toss, which became an argument between the photographer and the catering manager about whether the cake had been photographed before someone removed a sugar flower. Daniel was pulled from one place to another. Every time he passed me, he touched my shoulder or smiled, as if checking a box marked "Mother still present." Vanessa found me near the bar after 10. She had taken off her veil and several strands of hair had escaped around her face. She was barefoot, carrying her shoes again. Without them, she looked smaller. "Are you having fun?" she asked. "Yes. You're lying. I'm at an age when fun is measured by whether I can sit down." She laughed and leaned beside me against the bar. For a minute, we watched Daniel attempt to dance with 3 of his co-workers. None of them had the rhythm to justify the confidence involved. "I love him," Vanessa said. "I know. I know today was a lot. It was a wedding. They're usually more than a little. My family can be overwhelming. They're happy for you. That's a kind answer. It's all so true." She looked at the champagne in her glass. "My mother believes every occasion is a test of how much people love her. What happens if they fail?" She schedules another occasion. I laughed before I could stop myself. Vanessa smiled, but her eyes stayed on the glass. "When I was planning all this, everybody had a need. My mother needed her sisters nearby. Denise needed the reading. Uncle Paul needed the aisle seat. My father needed food before the pictures because of his medication. Every time I fixed something, another person had a crisis, and I didn't. No. She finally looked at me. You never do. The words could have been gratitude. They could also have been an accusation. I have crises, I said. I just don't announce them through 3 relatives. That's what I mean. You're calm. I've been called worse. I wish my family could be more like that. She reached for my hand, and there was something sincere in the gesture. Vanessa was not pretending to like me. That would have been simpler. She did like me. She simply liked my lack of demands most. Stay for breakfast tomorrow, she said. People are supposed to start around 8:30. It'll be relaxed. Daniel mentioned it. Good. I want time where we're not being dragged in 6 directions. Just family? Her smile came easily. Just family. Someone called her from the dance floor. She squeezed my hand and hurried away, leaving her half-empty glass on the bar. Caroline joined me a moment later. I couldn't hear, she said. Was she apologizing or assigning you something? Neither. I don't trust neither. She asked me to breakfast. You were already coming to breakfast. Then she asked, very successfully. Caroline studied my face. You still have the brooch in your purse? Where else would it be? Give it to me. Why? So you stop carrying something precious around in a room full of open champagne. I handed her the velvet box. She slipped it into her clutch. I'll return it in the morning. You're going to breakfast? I am now. But Caroline's stomach had other plans. Shortly before midnight, she went pale while insisting the chicken had tasted suspicious. Her husband, Walter, who had spent most of the reception discussing fishing equipment with the garden club man, drove her home. It is not the chicken, I told her, as Walter helped her into the passenger seat. It was beige, she said. Food should commit to a color. You had 3 pieces of cake. I was comparing the fillings. She gripped my wrist through the open window. Come with us. I have a room. You also have judgment. Use it. I'll see you next week. The brooch is in my clutch. I know. I'm not stealing it. I didn't accuse you. You were thinking it. I was thinking you're dramatic when you're nauseated. Walter leaned across her. She's dramatic when she's healthy. Caroline gave him a look that proved she was recovering. They drove away. I stood under the hotel entrance while the taillights disappeared between the trees. For one irrational moment, I wanted to run after them in my silver shoes. Instead, I went back inside. The reception was thinning. Vanessa's aunts were gathered around a table dividing flower arrangements. Daniel's co-workers had moved to the bar. Near the ballroom doors, the wedding coordinator, a tired woman named Paige, was trying to stack gift bags while speaking into a headset. I helped her collect the cards and personal items left at the head table. Daniel had asked me weeks earlier if I would take the gifts home after the wedding, because he and Vanessa were leaving for their honeymoon directly from the hotel the next afternoon. My car was at my house, but a rented sport utility vehicle was due at 9:30 the next morning. Daniel had arranged it. The larger gifts were already locked in a small conference room. Paige placed the card box inside while I checked the tables for envelopes. You're a lifesaver, she said. I'm a woman with comfortable shoes in her room. Same thing at this hour. Daniel found me carrying 2 jackets and a purse that belonged to Marjorie. Mom, what are you doing? Stealing coats? I mean, why are you still working? Because Paige has 1 pair of hands. He took the jackets from me. Go to bed. Your mother-in-law's purse is under my arm. He removed that, too. Anything else? Your wife's shoes are under table 6. He looked beneath the table. How do you know? She keeps abandoning them. He came back up holding the shoes. I'm going to spend the rest of my life following her with footwear. There are worse lives. His face softened. You really are okay. The question irritated me because of how badly I wanted to answer it the way he wanted. I'm tired. That's not what I asked. It's what I answered. Before he could press, Vanessa called from across the room. Daniel looked toward her, then stayed where he was. It was a small thing. So small, I almost rewarded him for it. Go, I said. You sure? There it is again. What? Nothing. He waited. I smiled because we were standing amid dirty glasses on his wedding night, and there are truths that deserve a cleaner room. "I'll see you at breakfast," I said. The next morning, I dressed in navy slacks and a cream sweater, packed my suitcase, and left it with the bell desk before going to the dining room. Daniel was already there with Vanessa and her parents. He had changed from a groom back into my son, rumpled hair, blue shirt, no jacket. When he saw me, he stood and kissed my cheek. "You survived," I said, barely. Vanessa talks in her sleep. "I do not," Vanessa said. "You gave the bartender instructions at 3 a.m. Did he follow them?" A server poured my coffee. I sat 2 chairs from Daniel, between an empty place and one of Vanessa's aunts, who was explaining why hotel pillows had declined nationwide. For 20 minutes, breakfast was exactly what Vanessa had promised: warm, ordinary, unperformed. Then the cousin and his wife arrived without warning. They stood behind Vanessa while she counted chairs. Her mother began moving handbags. Her father called for a server. There was room if people shifted. There was room if someone brought one more chair. Vanessa looked down the length of the table. Her gaze stopped at me. By the time I reached the little table behind the column, my coffee had sloshed into the saucer. I sat facing the service doors. Every time they swung open, I saw a bright slice of the kitchen and heard dishes striking dishes. A server approached with a menu. "Will someone be joining you?" "No," I said. She hesitated. "Would you like me to move this extra place setting?" I looked at the untouched plate across from me. "Yes, please." She carried it away. From the long table came a burst of laughter. Daniel's voice rose above it, telling a story I had heard before. I waited for him to come around the column. My coffee cooled. He never did. I finished half a piece of toast. That was longer than it sounds. I buttered it carefully, cut it into 2 triangles, then cut one of those in half. The knife scraped against the plate. Behind the column, somebody laughed so loudly that another person shushed him. The service doors opened. A waiter came through carrying a tray of bacon. He saw me, adjusted his path, and offered it. "No, thank you. You sure? It's fresh. I'm sure." He looked toward the long table and then at my single-place setting. His face did something kind that I could not bear. "I'll take one," I said. He placed 2 strips on my plate. I ate those too. It is tempting, when telling a story later, to make humiliation look clean. You imagine the wounded person rising with dignity, leaving an untouched meal behind. In reality, I had paid $28 for the breakfast, and the bacon was good. A photographer entered the dining room just as I pushed my plate away. Not Brett, but a younger woman who had been taking candid pictures during the reception. She walked toward the long table with her camera raised. "Good morning, everybody. I need one last photograph while we have both families together." Chairs shifted. People complained about not having brushed their hair. Vanessa laughed and told them they looked fine. I waited. Daniel could have called my name. Vanessa could have remembered where she had put me. Even Marjorie, who noticed when one candle went out across a ballroom, could have looked around and realized the groom's mother was missing. The photographer began arranging them. I signed the check and carried it to the hostess stand. The lobby felt too cold after the dining room. Behind the front desk, a man named Henry asked whether I'd enjoyed my stay. His name tag said he had been creating memories at the hotel for 11 years. Yes, I said automatically. Then I heard myself. Henry waited with professional patience. The room was quiet, I added. "I'm glad. I'd like to check out." He tapped at his keyboard. "Of course. I see your luggage is already with the bell desk. Are you still expecting the rental vehicle at 9:30? I need to make a change." The sport utility vehicle had been reserved under Daniel's name, with me listed as the driver. Henry found the note from the concierge. When he offered to call the rental company, I thanked him. While he spoke to them, I called Paige. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding as though she had slept inside a dryer. "Everything okay? The gifts are still in the conference room?" "Yes, locked up. I have the key." "Good. I won't be taking them this morning." A pause followed. "Does Daniel know?" "Not yet. I can keep everything here until this afternoon." After that, the room is booked for a dental conference. Could one of Daniel's friends collect them? Sure, if he gives me a name. Then please don't release anything until he does. No problem. I'm sorry to change the plan. You're not the first mother to leave a wedding hotel early. Her tone was light, but something beneath it made me wonder how many small tables Paige had seen. Henry handed me the desk phone. The rental company needed verbal confirmation. I removed myself as the driver and left the reservation in Daniel's name. It took 4 minutes and 2 transfers. By the time I finished, the photographer was herding everyone from the dining room into the lobby. I stepped behind a large arrangement of white flowers. The decision embarrassed me. Hiding was childish. I could have walked straight past them, head high, suitcase rolling behind me. Instead, I stood beside a vase the size of a rain barrel while Vanessa's relatives arranged themselves on the staircase. The bellman brought my suitcase. He glanced at the crowd and lowered his voice. "Would you like to wait until they're done?" "No. Is there another exit?" He pointed toward a side door near the elevators. I tipped him too much. Outside, the taxi lane was empty except for a black sedan waiting for a man in golf clothes. The bellman called a cab while I stood beneath the awning, breathing air that smelled like damp leaves and gasoline. My phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring. It stopped, then started again. The taxi pulled up. The driver put my suitcase in the trunk and asked where I was headed. I gave him my address. As we left the hotel driveway, my phone buzzed with a message. "Where are you? We're taking pictures." I looked out the window. The lake appeared between the trees, bright and flat in the morning sun. The white ceremony chairs had been removed. Only a few pale marks in the grass showed where they had stood. Another message came. "Mom?" Then, "Vanessa said you left breakfast." I typed, "Yes." I stared at the word before sending it. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Why? I put the phone face down on my lap. The driver was a man named Luis, with silver hair and a small plastic hula dancer fixed to his dashboard. At the first traffic light, he looked at me in the mirror. Wedding? Was it the dress bag? It was the flowers. I looked down. I was still holding one of the small table arrangements Paige had urged guests to take. White roses, eucalyptus, and a single bent carnation sat in a glass jar between my feet. I forgot I had it. Good wedding? Yes. He nodded as if that settled it. My phone rang again. Luis glanced in the mirror but did not comment. I answered. "Where are you?" Daniel said. "In a taxi, I know that," the front desk told me. "Where are you going?" "Home." "What do you mean?" "Home? I mean the house where I live. Mom, the rental car is coming. The gifts are still here. We've been looking everywhere for you. The rental is still in your name. Paige has the gifts locked in the conference room. Give her the name of whoever will pick them up." Silence. "You left?" "Yes." "Without telling me?" "You watched me leave breakfast. That is not the same thing." "No, it isn't." He exhaled hard. I could picture him closing his eyes, pressing 2 fingers between his eyebrows the way Frank used to when a bill arrived. "Can you come back?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm going home." "Mom, this is ridiculous." The word passed through me more gently than it should have. Perhaps I had already used up my surprise. "Maybe," I said. Vanessa was trying to fit everybody in. There weren't enough seats. There were enough seats before her cousin arrived. They drove 3 hours. I drove 2. It wasn't personal. She looked at me, called that the family table, and moved me away from it. How could that be anything but personal? She didn't mean it like that. I heard how she meant it. I'm sure she wasn't thinking. "You were." He went quiet. Traffic moved around us. Luis kept both hands on the wheel and looked very carefully ahead. "Daniel," Vanessa said in the background. He muffled the phone. Their voices blurred. Then Vanessa came on. "Ruth?" "Yes." "I'm so sorry you're upset." I closed my eyes. "I had 2 people standing there," she continued. "The hotel wouldn't let us block the aisle with another chair, and I thought you would be more comfortable at the smaller table." Did I look comfortable? I didn't have time to check. The photographer came in, and my mother was asking about the airport shuttle. You had time to tell me the family table was full. That isn't what I meant. It's what you said. Another pause. I wish you had told me it bothered you, she said. Luisha's hula dancer nodded enthusiastically as we turned. What would you have done? I would have explained. You're explaining now. I'm trying to apologize. No, Vanessa, you're trying to make what you did sound reasonable. Her breath caught. For a second, I felt cruel. Then Daniel's voice returned. Mom, please. She just got married yesterday. So did you. What does that mean? It means she wasn't alone at that table. He lowered his voice. Can we not do this over the phone? I don't want to do it at all right now. You're blowing up the end of our wedding weekend over breakfast. I left quietly. You disappeared. I was behind a column. He had no answer to that. The cab turned onto my street. I need some space, I said. Space from who? I looked at the flowers between my feet. One white rose had dropped 2 petals onto the rubber floor mat. From both of you. Mom, I'm home. I'll call when I'm ready. I ended the call before he could answer. Luis stopped at my curb. When he opened the trunk, he pretended not to notice that I stayed in the back seat wiping my face with a napkin from the hotel. You want me to carry the bag to the door? He asked. I can manage. I know. I still asked. That nearly started me again. He carried it anyway. Inside, the house smelled closed up, though I had been gone only 2 nights. Frank's old umbrella stood in the corner by the door. I had meant to throw it away for years. One metal spoke was broken, and the handle had teeth marks from a dog we had not owned since Daniel was in college. I set the flowers on the kitchen counter. My phone showed 4 messages from Daniel, 2 from Vanessa and 1 from Marjorie. Marjorie said, I'm sorry we missed you before you left. Thank you for making the weekend so special. I turned the phone off. The silence in the kitchen swelled immediately. I unpacked because unpacking gave my hands instructions. Cream sweater in the laundry basket, toiletries in the bathroom, silver shoes on the closet shelf where they looked innocent. At the bottom of the suitcase, I found the folded ceremony program with my name still printed beside the reading. Ruth Mercer, mother of the groom. The black ink had not been corrected. Nobody had replaced my name on the paper. I sat on the edge of the bed holding it. The doorbell rang. For one foolish second, I thought Daniel had followed me. I imagined opening the door and seeing him in his blue shirt, ready to say the thing he had failed to say at breakfast. It was Caroline. She stood on the porch wearing sunglasses, carrying my brooch in one hand and a paper bag in the other. Before you say anything, she said, I have a headache. My stomach is fine, and the chicken remains guilty. I stepped aside. She walked into the kitchen, saw the flowers, and removed her sunglasses. What happened? Who called you? Daniel. Of course. He wanted to know whether you were with me. His exact words were, she just left. Caroline set the bag on the counter. The smell of cinnamon came through the paper. What did they do? I took the velvet box from her hand. She waited while I opened it and looked at the little circle of pearls. They moved me at breakfast. Moved you where? To another table. Why? I closed the box. Because the family table was full. Caroline did not speak. Her silence was so complete that I heard the refrigerator motor turn on. Finally, she pulled out a chair. Sit down. I've been sitting all morning. Then stand. I don't care. I need you to tell me exactly what Daniel did. I put the brooch on the counter beside the wedding flowers. He handed me my coffee, I said, and told me not to make it awkward. Caroline's face changed, not with surprise. That would have been easier. She looked as if something she had feared for years had finally introduced itself by name. Oh, Ruth, she said. I turned away from her. He knew I'd move. The words came out smaller than I intended. He knew, I said again, because I always do. Caroline tore the paper bag open with more force than necessary. "You did not cause this," she said. "I didn't say I caused it. You were about to. I said he knew. That is not the same thing. It's close." She took out 2 cinnamon rolls, each one the size of a catcher's mitt, and put them on plates. Caroline believed baked goods became medicinal if eaten during a crisis. She once brought me a pecan pie while Frank was having a colonoscopy. "Coffee?" I asked. "Sit. It's my kitchen. Then you know where the chairs are." I sat. She placed a cinnamon roll in front of me and pulled the other chair close enough that our knees nearly touched. "Daniel made a choice," she said. "Vanessa made a choice. Do not turn their choices into evidence that you failed some secret mothering exam. I taught him I'd be all right. You taught him you loved him. I taught him more than that." Caroline leaned back. "What exactly do you think you taught him?" I peeled a strip of pastry from the edge of the roll. That keeping the peace mattered. There was no peace at that breakfast. There was for everybody else. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The house settled around us. Pipes clicked behind the wall. Outside, someone ran a leaf blower with the determination of a man trying to move the whole season into another yard. I ate the strip of pastry. When Daniel was 26, I said, he brought a woman named Leslie to Thanksgiving. I remember Leslie. You called her large scarf. She wore a blanket around her neck. She also told Frank his turkey was dry. Frank's turkey was dry. Not the point. Caroline gestured for me to continue. Daniel said he thought he was going to marry her. Then, the day before Christmas, he stopped answering her calls. Just stopped. Wouldn't tell her it was over. I don't remember that part. You were in Arizona. I never liked Arizona. Again, not the point. I looked down at the icing melting into the warm center of the roll. Leslie called the house. Daniel was sitting 10 feet away, shaking his head at me. I told her he was out. Caroline's expression changed. I told myself I was giving him time to find the right words, I said. Then I made him call her the next day. You made him. The next day. You're blaming yourself because a grown man waited 24 hours to end a relationship? No. I'm remembering how quickly I stepped between him and discomfort. You step between everyone in discomfort. That isn't a defense. I didn't say it was. She reached across the table and pulled my plate closer to me because I had stopped eating. You did it for Frank too, she said. Frank wasn't afraid of discomfort. No, he caused it and left you to fold it into napkins. I looked at her. What? She said. We're remembering things accurately today. Frank had loved loudly and apologized quietly, if at all. He could turn a disagreement about grocery bags into a constitutional debate, then go to the garage while I restored order. Daniel had inherited his father's desire to be liked and my talent for making unpleasantness disappear. It was not an ideal combination. He's not a bad man, I said. I didn't say he was. He's not thoughtless. I didn't say that either. He called every day after Frank died. I know. He came over every Sunday for months. He fixed the porch light. He sat with me when I couldn't sleep. Ruth, I don't want you turning him into someone he isn't because you're angry for me. Caroline folded her hands. Then don't turn him into someone he isn't because you love him. The leaf blower stopped. The sudden quiet made the room seem larger. Caroline took a bite of cinnamon roll and chewed without looking at me. She had said what she came to say. Unlike me, my sister knew how to leave words where she put them. I opened the velvet box again. The brooch lay against the dark lining, 4 pearls and a cloudy stone. One of the pearls had a tiny chip on the side. I remembered Frank's mother pinning it to my coat the first Christmas after our wedding. She had poked me with the clasp and accused me of moving. Put it somewhere safe, Caroline said. It was safe in my purse. It survived Denise, champagne, and your emotional repression. Don't tempt fate. I carried it to my bedroom and placed it in the top drawer of my dresser beneath 2 silk scarves. When I returned, Caroline had turned on my phone. You had no right. It was on the counter. That is not a right. Daniel left another message. I took the phone from her. There were now 7 messages, though the last one was only an update. Evan got the gifts. Paige has his name. Rental is handled. Please let me know you're okay. Evan was Daniel's best friend, the one who had given the funny speech. He owned a pickup truck and had probably spent his morning regretting that fact. I typed, "I'm home and safe. Thank you for handling the gifts." Caroline watched me. "That's it? That's what he asked. He asked more than that." "I'm not ready for more." She nodded once. "Good." The approval irritated me. "I'm allowed to answer my own son without supervision." "Of course you are. You don't sound as if you believe that. I'm trying not to argue because you look tired." "So now I'm the fragile one?" Caroline stared at me, then began to laugh. I tried not to. It lasted perhaps 3 seconds. Soon we were both laughing too hard over absolutely nothing, which turned into Caroline coughing icing onto a napkin and accusing me of making her choke. The laughter hurt my ribs. It also made the kitchen feel like mine again. Before she left, Caroline hugged me at the front door. "Call him when you want to," she said. "Not when I want you to. Not when he wants you to." "I know, and if you forgive him tomorrow, I will mind my business." "No, you won't." "No," she admitted, "but I will mind it more quietly." After her car disappeared, I stood with my hand on the doorknob, listening to the silence return. The hotel flowers lasted 4 days. Each morning I changed their water and removed whatever had wilted overnight. The bent carnations straightened. 2 roses opened fully, their outer petals curling brown at the edges. By the end, only the eucalyptus remained, still green and stubborn. Daniel and Vanessa left for their honeymoon that afternoon. I knew because Vanessa sent me a photograph from the airport. She and Daniel were holding plastic cups of champagne, his cheek pressed against hers. "Wish you were leaving us with a happier memory," she wrote. "Hope we can put this behind us when we get home." I read the message several times. There was no apology in it, only a request that my pain become temporary enough not to inconvenience their return. I did not answer. Daniel called on the 2nd day, then the 4th. His voicemails were brief, just checking in. "I know you need space. I love you. Mom, I don't want this hanging over us." I listened to the 3rd message twice because of the way he said Mom, not impatiently, not angrily. He sounded tired and far away. My thumb hovered over his name. I put the phone in a drawer and vacuumed the living room. Distance looked simple when Caroline described it. In practice, it was a collection of stupid moments. Reaching for the phone when I saw a commercial Daniel would hate. Buying too much ground coffee because he usually drank 2 cups on Sundays. Finding a jar of the mustard Vanessa liked and realizing I had bought it for a dinner that had not yet been planned. Sunday was worst. For years, Daniel had called around 10, usually from his car. If Vanessa was with him, I could hear her giving directions from the passenger seat, even though Daniel had been driving to my house since he was 16. Sometimes they came for lunch. Sometimes he only talked while running errands. The routine was loose enough that I had never called it a routine until it stopped. At 10:15, I carried my phone into the kitchen. At 10:30, I made eggs. At 11, I told myself I was relieved. By noon, I hated the whole house. I drove to Caroline's and arrived without calling. She opened the door wearing gardening gloves and did not ask why I was there. "Do you want to pull weeds or drink wine? It's noon." So weeds? We spent 2 hours in her backyard arguing over which plants were weeds. Caroline had planted ornamental grass around the fence, then forgotten what it looked like. Walter came outside, surveyed our progress, and quietly went back in. Daniel did not call that day. The lack of pressure should have felt respectful. Instead, I wondered whether he was enjoying the silence. That was the humiliating part of a boundary. Once you asked people not to cross it, you had to stand there and discover whether they wanted to. A week later, I was rinsing a coffee cup when the phone rang. Daniel. I answered before I could rehearse. "Hi, Mom. Hello. We're back. I assumed you would be eventually." He gave a cautious laugh. The flight was terrible. We sat on the runway for 2 hours, and Vanessa got into an argument with a man about the overhead bin. I'm sure she won. She did. A silence followed, full of the things we were both avoiding. How was the trip? I asked. Good. Really good. We ate too much. I have pictures. I'm glad. Evan brought the gifts to our apartment. We have 3 bread makers. You do like bread. Not that much. I could hear traffic behind him. He was in his car, returning us to familiar ground, one ordinary detail at a time. What are you doing Sunday? He asked. I don't know yet. We could come over. I'll bring lunch. No. The answer came before I softened it. Daniel went quiet. No, you're busy? No, I don't want to have lunch. With us? Yes. Okay. A turn signal clicked in the background. Are you still that angry? I'm not sure angry is the word. What is the word? Hurt. He sighed. It was small, but I heard it. You asked me what the word was, I said. I know, I'm listening. You sound tired of listening. I'm trying, Mom, I really am. But it was one bad moment at the end of an exhausting weekend. It was more than one moment. What else? The reading, the brooch, the room, the photographs, my seat at the reception. You told me those things were fine. I told you I understood. What's the difference? I rested one hand against the kitchen counter. Understanding why someone hurts you doesn't make it hurt less. That's not fair. To whom? To Vanessa. To me. You're taking every decision we made about a complicated wedding and turning it into evidence that we don't love you. I know you love me. Then what are we doing? I'm trying to find out whether your love has any weight when someone else wants my chair. He stopped speaking. The turn signal kept clicking. Finally, he said, I can't believe you're willing to damage our relationship over a breakfast table. The words landed cleanly. Not ruin, not end. Damage. As if the relationship had been in perfect condition until I named what happened to it. I didn't move myself, Daniel. You could have said something. You saw my face. I was trying to keep everybody happy. No, you were trying to keep everybody else happy. Mom, come on. And you knew I'd make that easy for you. His voice hardened. So what do you want? For me to go back and rearrange the chairs? I want you to stop talking as if my reaction is the only choice that mattered. He breathed into the phone. Vanessa thinks you're punishing us, he said. I'm protecting myself. From us? Yes. That answer frightened both of us. I heard it in the silence. I need more time, I said. How much? I don't know. What am I supposed to do until then? For once, I did not give him instructions. That's yours to figure out, I said. Daniel did not like having the work returned to him. I'm asking because I don't know what you expect. I expect you to think about what happened. I have thought about it. For how long? Oh, come on. The turn signal stopped. His car accelerated, engine rising beneath his voice. I apologized, he said. No, Vanessa said she was sorry I was upset. You said the situation wasn't personal. I told you I should have handled it differently. When? At the reception. You were talking about the brooch. It's all the same issue. No, it isn't. How is it different? The brooch was a thing. The chair was mine. He made a frustrated sound. I could see the conversation from his side. I was taking small pieces of one weekend and refusing to let him stack them into something harmless. If he kept them separate, the reading, the brooch, the dance, the chair, each one could be explained. Together, they made a shape he did not want to recognize. I have to get back to work, he said. Then go. I love you. He said it quickly, almost angrily. I love you too. The line went dead. For several minutes, I remained in the kitchen holding the phone against my ear. Then I put it down and finished rinsing the same coffee cup I had been washing when he called. That evening, someone knocked on my back door. Only 2 people used the back door, Caroline and my neighbor June Ellis. Caroline knocked like she was serving a warrant. This was 3 light taps, a pause, then 2 more. June stood outside holding a casserole dish covered with foil. I made too much lasagna. You always make too much. I believe in leftovers and emotional leverage. She stepped inside without waiting. June was 70, divorced, and built like a woman who had spent 40 years refusing to ask men to move furniture for her. Her gray hair was cut close around her ears. She wore denim overalls over a red sweater and had a streak of tomato sauce on one wrist. She set the dish on my counter. "You look strange," she said. "Thank you." "Not bad. Unoccupied." What does unoccupied look like? Like you're waiting for a bus you hope doesn't come. June opened one of my cabinets and took out 2 plates. She'd been my neighbor for 9 years and still disagreed with where I kept everything. "Did Caroline call you?" "No." "She doesn't like me. Caroline likes you. She respects me." That is not the same thing. I could not argue with that. June cut the lasagna into squares. "There's a play downtown Thursday. Come with me." "What play?" "I don't remember." "Who's in it?" "People with headshots." "What is it about?" If I knew all that, I wouldn't need to see it. I almost said I should check with Daniel. The habit rose intact, even though there was no logical reason I would need my son's permission to attend a Thursday night play. Thursday was one of the evenings he sometimes called after work. Sometimes, not always. Nothing had ever been scheduled. "Who else is going?" I asked. "My friend Gwendolyn." "You met her at the garden tour. The woman who stole the hydrangea cutting? She liberated it. From a public park. It has adjusted well." I took 2 forks from the drawer. "All right," I said. June stopped cutting. "What?" I said. "I'll go." "I heard you. I'm trying not to look surprised. You asked me. You have declined the last 4 things I asked you to." "That's not true." "Jazz concert. Too loud. Museum dinner. Too late. Sunday drive. I had plans. You made pot roast for Daniel. That is a plan." June handed me a plate. "Wear something you can sit in for 2 hours. Gwendolyn dresses like opening night is a federal holiday, but you can ignore her." After she left, I wrote Thursday on the calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. I had not needed to write appointments on a paper calendar in years. My phone reminded me of everything. Still, seeing the word there made it feel less like I was filling time and more like the time belonged to me. The wedding photographs arrived the next morning. A link appeared in a group message Vanessa had created months earlier for immediate family. There were 23 people in it, which told me something about her definition of immediate. Vanessa wrote, "They're here." Brett says these are previews and the full gallery comes next week. Hearts and exclamation marks filled the screen. I did not open the link. At noon, Caroline called. "Photograph 37. I haven't looked." "Look, why?" "Because it's good. I don't want to." "I'm not setting a trap, Ruth." "That sounds exactly like something a person says while setting a trap." "Open the link. Photograph 37, then stop." I put her on speaker and found the gallery. The pictures loaded in a grid of soft light and pale flowers. Vanessa walking down the aisle. Daniel laughing beneath her veil. Marjorie crying into both hands. Denise reading with her glasses in one hand and the pages too close to her face. I tapped number 37. Daniel and I stood on the lawn. His arm was around my shoulders, his lips against my temple. My eyes were closed. The wind had lifted one side of my hair, and my mouth curved in a smile I did not remember making. For one moment, the photograph gave me back the son I thought I had lost at breakfast. "It's beautiful," I said. "I know. I look old. You are old. You're a year younger, a glorious year." I enlarged Daniel's face. His eyes were closed, too. "He loves you," Caroline said. "I know." "Good. I wanted to make sure you still knew." The tenderness of it surprised me. Caroline usually offered comfort disguised as a complaint or a baked item. "Thank you," I said. "Now close the gallery before you reach photograph 52. I should have listened. What is 52? "Nothing." Caroline. "It's the staircase picture." I scrolled. Both families filled the hotel staircase, the same one near the dining room. Daniel and Vanessa stood in the center. Marjorie and her husband were beside them. Aunts, cousins, spouses, Denise, Evan, and people I had seen only once leaned into one another across 3 steps. There was no empty space where I should have been. That was what struck me. The picture did not look incomplete. Brett, or the younger photographer, had composed it beautifully without me. They took that after I left, I said. Yes. Why did you want me to stop? Because I knew you'd stare at it until it became evidence that you never existed. I existed. Exactly. A new message appeared in the group. It was from Lorraine, Vanessa's actual godmother, whom I had met at the rehearsal dinner. Where's Ruth in the big family shot? Before I could decide whether to answer, Marjorie responded. She had to leave early. That was not technically a lie. I had left early. It simply moved the reason somewhere out of sight. Lorraine wrote, "Oh no, was she feeling sick?" The cursor blinked beneath the conversation. Caroline said, "Don't protect them. I'm not doing anything. You're already composing an illness. I could say I had a headache. Did you?" Eventually. Ruth. 23 people were watching the group message. This was not how I wanted to tell the story. I did not want a public trial conducted with heart emojis still floating above it. So I sent Lorraine a private reply. I was fine. Vanessa moved me away from the family table at breakfast when more relatives arrived, and Daniel asked me not to make it awkward. I decided to go home. I read the message 3 times before pressing send. "That's all I'm saying," I told Caroline. "That's all you need to say." Lorraine responded 10 minutes later. "Oh, Ruth, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Neither of us mentioned it again." I went to the play on Thursday. It turned out to be a comedy about 3 widowed women sharing a house near the ocean. June complained during intermission that the set had too many decorative pillows. Gwendolyn wore a purple velvet coat and admitted she had taken the hydrangea cutting, though she rejected the word stolen on philosophical grounds. I laughed more than I expected. At dinner afterward, I forgot to check my phone for almost an hour. When I did, there were 2 missed calls from Vanessa. The first came at 8:12, the second at 8:40. No message. I considered calling in the restaurant, then put the phone back in my purse. At home, I changed into pajamas, washed my face, and sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in my hand. It was nearly midnight. I called her. Vanessa answered immediately. "Ruth, is everything all right?" My mother called me crying. I stood and reached for my robe. "What happened?" Lorraine called her. "Apparently, Lorraine now thinks I threw you out of the family breakfast. That isn't what I told her. What did you tell her?" I repeated the message exactly. Vanessa was silent. "Did Lorraine ask you?" she said. "Yes." "And you just told her that?" "She asked why I wasn't in the picture. You could have said you left. I did leave. You know what I mean." "Yes," I said. "I do." She exhaled. "My mother is devastated. She thinks everyone believes she was part of excluding you. I didn't mention your mother. It was her family at the table. It was also yours. That's not fair." The phrase sounded so much like Daniel that I sat down again. "You both keep saying that," I said. "What would have been fair? You talking to us privately instead of telling people." I tried talking to Daniel about us, not to other people. Lorraine asked me a direct question. You could have protected what was supposed to be a happy memory. There it was again, my assigned task. You mean I could have lied? I mean, you could have had some perspective. You were in the first row. You were in the family photographs. You had a dance with Daniel. I made sure Brett took one of the 2 of you. That was kind. Kind? Yes. You make it sound like I handed a stranger a meal. I did not answer. Her voice tightened. "I spent over a year trying to include you, and I spent over a year trying not to make that difficult. So now none of it counts because of one sentence. It all counts. That isn't how this feels. What does it feel like? Like you were waiting for one mistake so you could prove Daniel chose the wrong woman. The accusation was so far from what I had wanted that it hurt differently. I watched him marry you with a full heart," I said. "I was happy for both of you." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because being happy for you should not require me to pretend you didn't humiliate me. I did not humiliate you. You moved me behind a column. There were no seats. There were chairs all over the dining room. The hotel wouldn't let us block the aisle. Then you could have moved with me." She stopped. The possibility had never occurred to her, not once. "That was our family breakfast," she said finally. "I know." Vanessa inhaled, but no words followed. The silence lasted long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then she said very quietly, "I think you want him to choose you over me." "No. You may not admit it, but that's what this is. I wanted my son to choose not to help you hurt me. That is not the same thing." She ended the call without saying goodnight. A minute later, Daniel called. I watched his name fill the screen. For the first time in my life, I let my son ring until the room was quiet again. The quiet lasted 12 seconds. Then the phone chimed with a voicemail. I turned it face down on the nightstand and went to bed. Sleep did not follow. I listened to the heating system come on, run, and shut off. Somewhere after 1, a car door slammed on the street. At 2:30, I got up for water and saw the phone blinking in the dark. I did not touch it. By morning, restraint had lost its dignity and begun to feel like fear. Daniel's message was 58 seconds long. "Mom, I don't know what Vanessa said to you, but she's crying and I need you to understand how out of hand this has gotten. Her mother is upset. Lorraine is calling people, all because you couldn't just talk to us. I know we made mistakes, but you're making it sound like we deliberately excluded you from the whole wedding. That isn't what happened, and you know it. Call me back." He sounded angry until the last 4 words. Then he sounded like my son. I played it again. The second time, I noticed what was missing. Not one question about how I felt, not one mention of the sentence Vanessa had said or the one he had added. I typed a reply. "I did talk to you." I also answered Lorraine honestly when she asked why I was missing. I am not calling relatives or asking anyone to take sides. I won't discuss this again while we are all angry. I sent it before I could add an apology. Daniel responded 10 minutes later. "Fine." That single word followed me through breakfast. It sat beside me while I folded laundry. It rode in the passenger seat when I drove to the pharmacy. It stood behind me in the grocery store as I picked up a package of chicken thighs, remembered Frank's dry turkey, and laughed out loud in front of the meat case. A man reaching for pork chops looked concerned. "I'm all right," I told him. I didn't ask. "No, but you were thinking it." He nodded. I was. At home, I ordered a print of photograph 37. The website offered glossy, matte, metallic, canvas, and something called heirloom finish. I chose matte because it was the cheapest and because the word heirloom felt too ambitious for a picture taken on a day when I had removed one from my dress. The print arrived in a flat cardboard envelope 3 days later. I framed it and placed it on the living room bookshelf beside a photograph of Frank wearing a fishing hat he claimed made him look rugged. In truth, it made him look like a man who had been banned from a bait shop. For a long time, I stood between the 2 pictures. One man was gone. The other was angry with me. I loved them both. Love was not the problem. Marjorie called the following Tuesday. I almost let her go to voicemail, but curiosity won. "Ruth," she said, "I hope this isn't a bad time. I'm folding towels. We can talk another day." "Marjorie, there will be towels another day, too." She gave a small laugh that broke in the middle. "I owe you an apology." I sat down on the arm of the sofa. "You don't have to apologize for Vanessa." "I'm not. I'm apologizing for myself." That surprised me enough to keep me quiet. "I was at that table," she continued. "I saw you move. I didn't hear exactly what Vanessa said because Paul was asking whether they had decaf, but I saw your face. Paul was her husband, which meant she had been watching him search for coffee while her daughter moved me out of sight. "I thought you had agreed to sit over there," she said. "You're always so gracious." Then when Lorraine told me what happened, I realized I had assumed gracious meant unhurt. The words were not polished. I could hear her breathing too close to the phone. "Thank you," I said. "I should have made room." There was room. I know. A silence opened. "My family does this," Marjorie said. We arrive in groups. We move chairs. We think if we're loud enough, everyone else will adjust. Vanessa told me she finds it overwhelming. She does, but she also knows how to do it. I looked toward the framed wedding photograph. She learned, Marjorie said, that the person who objects first gets considered first. It was so close to what Vanessa had told me at the reception that I wondered how many times a family could recognize its own pattern without changing it. I'm not asking you to excuse her, Marjorie added quickly. I only wanted you to know I'm sorry I sat there. I appreciate that. She's very upset. I know. She feels like everyone is judging her by the worst thing she did all weekend. I'm not everyone. No. Marjorie sighed. But you're the one she can't dismiss. The honesty of that landed harder than an excuse would have. I don't hate your daughter, I said. I know. I don't want Daniel to leave her. I know that, too. I want them to understand what happened. I think understanding is taking longer than being sorry. That's often the case. We spoke for another 10 minutes about ordinary things. Her sister Denise had misplaced the wedding program containing her reading. Paul believed he had left a pair of shoes at the hotel, but could not describe them beyond brown. Marjorie asked whether I had recovered from the weekend, and I told her I was sleeping better. When we hung up, I felt lighter, then guilty for feeling lighter. It would have been easier if Vanessa's family had been monstrous. Monsters required no patience. Marjorie had watched me carry my coffee away and still called to apologize. My own son had watched and called to defend himself. June found me trimming the dead leaves from the eucalyptus on my kitchen counter. That thing belongs in a cemetery, she said. It's still green. It's crunchy. It has character. So does mildew. She opened my refrigerator, looked inside, and shut it. Saturday, she said. Gwendolyn is having people over. For what? Soup. That's not an event. It is when Gwendolyn makes it. She sets out little cards explaining the ingredients. I'm not sure that improves soup. You're coming. It was not a question, but unlike Daniel's assumptions, June's could survive the word no. Yes, I said. She blinked. You've become dangerously available. I'm trying something new. At Gwendolyn's, 8 adults sat around a scratched dining table eating 3 kinds of soup from mismatched bowls. One man named Robert brought homemade bread and spoke about sourdough starter, as if it were a troubled relative. A woman named Angela had recently retired from an airline and told stories about passengers attempting to carry lamps onto airplanes. Nobody knew Daniel. That should not have mattered, but it did. I was not his mother in that room. I was the woman who knew how to remove red wine from a linen napkin and who laughed too hard at a story about a lamp. When Gwendolyn asked if I would come to a concert the following month, I said yes without checking the calendar. I came home after 11 and found a message from Daniel. Can we talk about Thanksgiving? For 27 years, Thanksgiving had been at my house. Even after Frank died, I kept it going. The first year without him, Daniel arrived early and stood in the kitchen chopping celery, while both of us pretended the empty chair at the end of the table was not visible. The last 2 years, Vanessa's parents had joined us, then Denise, then one of Marjorie's sisters and her husband. I had moved furniture, borrowed folding chairs, and served dinner in shifts because the dining room only held 10 comfortably. No one had formally asked me to host this year. They had not needed to. Tradition had become an agreement I was expected to remember making. I wrote, "We can talk tomorrow." He called at 9 the next morning. "Hi," he said carefully. "Hello? Did I wake you?" "I've been awake since 6. "Right. Sorry." He was trying to be polite with me. I hated it. "What about Thanksgiving?" I asked. Vanessa's parents wanted to know what they should bring. I looked at my dining table. 6 chairs, 2 more stacked in the basement. A faint scratch near Frank's old place where Daniel had dropped a carving knife 3 years earlier. "I'm not hosting this year." Daniel did not react at first. Then he said, "What?" "I'm not going to have Thanksgiving here." "Why not? I don't want to." "That's it?" "That's enough. What are we supposed to do?" You and Vanessa can host, or her parents can. Our apartment is too small. Your mother-in-law has a house. Her oven barely works. Then buy a cooked turkey. You know that's not the same. Yes. He lowered his voice. Is this punishment? No, it feels like punishment. I have hosted Thanksgiving for 27 years. Choosing not to do it once is not an attack. You've never minded before. How would you know? The question slipped out before I decided to ask it. Daniel went quiet. I always help, he said. You chop celery. I do more than that. You also open wine and tell me the turkey needs another hour. You ask me to check it. I know. I sat at the table and ran my thumb along the wood grain. Caroline invited me to her house, I said. She and Walter are having a small dinner. You already made other plans? She asked yesterday. I haven't answered. You just said you were going there. I said she invited me. Well, are you? Yes, I said. The decision arrived while I spoke it. On the other end, Daniel exhaled. So you'll have Thanksgiving with Caroline, but not us. You and Vanessa are welcome to make your own plans. That is not an invitation. No. His hurt moved through me, looking for the old place where I would take responsibility for it. I let it pass. You're really doing this, he said. I'm having dinner with my sister. You know what I mean. I do. He was quiet for so long that I wondered if he had pulled the car over. Then he said, If this is what space looks like, I guess I understand. I don't think you do. You're canceling a family holiday and telling me it isn't punishment. I'm not canceling Thanksgiving. I'm declining to produce it. We're your family. Yes. Then why are you acting like we're not? I closed my eyes. At the hotel, that question had belonged to me. Now he handed it back as though I had invented the answer. I am still your mother, I said, but I am not the place where everyone gathers after deciding I'm the easiest person to move. Daniel did not reply. A car horn sounded faintly through his phone. I have to go, he said. I know. He ended the call without saying he loved me. This time, neither did I. The silence after our call lasted 9 days. Not complete silence. Daniel liked one of my photographs in the family message, a picture of the eucalyptus finally giving up in the compost bin. I did not know whether the little heart meant he missed me or approved of plant disposal. Vanessa posted twice about unpacking wedding gifts. The first picture showed 3 bread makers lined up on their kitchen counter. The second showed Daniel wearing 2 bathrobes at once. I looked at that picture longer than I meant to. He had always made sadness inconvenient by being funny. On the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, the doorbell rang while I was rolling pie dough. Daniel stood on the porch with his hands in the pockets of his coat. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then he said, "Hi, hello, can I come in?" I stepped aside. He entered as though the house belonged to someone he barely knew. He wiped his shoes on the mat, looked toward the living room, and waited for me to lead him into the kitchen. The dough sat on the counter beneath a dusting of flour. 2 bags of cranberries were in the sink. "I thought you weren't hosting," he said. "I'm bringing dessert to Caroline's." "And cranberries?" "Walter likes my cranberry sauce. You hate making cranberry sauce. I hate eating it. Making it is just boiling fruit until it apologizes." He smiled. It faded when I did not. "What brings you here?" I asked. "I need to borrow the roasting pan. You have a roasting pan. It was on your registry. We have a decorative roasting pan." "What does that mean?" "It means it's oval, expensive, and holds a chicken." "That sounds like a pan. We bought a 16-pound turkey." "For how many people?" 12. "That's too much turkey." "I know that now." He took off his coat and draped it over the back of a chair. The gesture was familiar enough to hurt. "Marjorie's oven works if you turn it on with pliers," he said. "We're cooking at our apartment and taking everything over there." "That sounds complicated." "It has become complicated. Thanksgiving often does. I wouldn't know. Mine usually appeared at 2 o'clock. The words might have been a joke. His eyes told me they were also an apology. I wiped my hands on a towel. "The pan is in the basement. I can get it." You'll never find it. I lived here for 18 years and spent none of them learning where cookware goes. I led him through the living room. He stopped beside the bookshelf. Photograph 37 stood next to Frank in his fishing hat. Daniel stared at it without touching the frame. You printed that? Yes. I thought you hated the pictures. I never said that. You didn't want to look at them. I didn't want to look at one of them. He leaned closer to the photograph. I like this one. So does Caroline. That ruins it a little. I laughed before I could stop myself. Daniel glanced at me, almost hopeful. Then his gaze moved to Frank's picture. I miss him, he said. So do I. Sometimes I think I know what he'd tell me. Then I remember most of his advice was terrible. Your father once advised a waiter to buy a boat. Did he know the waiter? No. Did the waiter buy one? I hope not. We stood together in front of the photographs. Daniel put his hands back into his pockets. I didn't know you'd still want a picture from the wedding. It was your wedding. I loved most of it. His mouth tightened. Most. Yes. One bad moment didn't erase the whole day. No. He turned toward me. That's what I've been trying to say. I know. Then why are we doing this? Because not erasing something isn't the same as pretending it didn't happen. He looked away. The warmth disappeared from the room as quickly as it had come. I went downstairs and found the roasting pan on a shelf behind a slow cooker. It was large, heavy, and blue on the outside, with scratches along the bottom from years of being shoved across oven racks. When I carried it upstairs, Daniel reached for it. I can still lift a pan. I know. Then stop taking it. He let go immediately. The force of my own voice embarrassed me. I'm sorry, I said. He nodded. It's okay. No. I snapped at you. I have been irritating since birth. You were quiet for the first 3 days, so there was a period of hope. I set the pan on the table. Daniel ran one finger over a chip in the enamel. Dad dropped this, didn't he? He claimed the floor rose. That sounds like him. I folded the towel I had used, though it did not need folding. Are you and Vanessa all right? I asked. With each other? Yes. Mostly. The answer came too fast. What does mostly mean? It means we've had arguments. About me? About a lot of things. I waited. He examined the pan handles. She thinks you never liked her, he said. That isn't true. I told her that. Did she believe you? No. Do you? He rubbed his jaw. I think you tried very hard to like her. That isn't the same accusation. I know. I thought about Vanessa barefoot at the reception, confessing that her family exhausted her. I thought about her pulling me into the photograph with Daniel. I thought about the feel of her hand on my arm while she asked me to remove the brooch. I do like her, I said. I don't like everything she does. She thinks this is about the marriage. It's about breakfast. Nothing is ever just about breakfast. No. Sometimes it's about a reading, a brooch, a dance, 2 different tables, and the person who keeps saying each one is too small to matter. Daniel's shoulders lowered. We want you to come tomorrow, he said. The invitation sounded rehearsed. To Marjorie's? Yes. We'll make room. Daniel. What? Do you hear yourself? His face reddened. That isn't how I meant it. I know. There's a place for you. That's what I meant. I already told Caroline I'd be there. You could stop by afterward. I don't want to divide the day. Why not? People do that because I spent years cooking Thanksgiving dinner while other people came and went according to their own plans. This year, I want to sit down and stay somewhere. He looked at the flour on my counter, the cranberries, the rolled dough. You've already made more food than Caroline asked for, haven't you? 1 pie and 1 sauce. How many pies? 2. His mouth curved. Don't, I said. I didn't say anything. You said it with your eyebrows. That sounds familiar. He lifted the roasting pan. At the door, he shifted it to one arm. I'm sorry I said you were damaging our relationship. I held the door open. Are you? Yes. What are you sorry for? His expression closed slightly. I hated myself for testing him. I also needed the answer. "I'm sorry I said it," he replied. "That isn't the same thing." "I know, Mom, but it's what I can say right now. It was more honest than the apology I wanted." "All right," I said. He stepped onto the porch. "Happy Thanksgiving. You too." He walked down the path, then turned. "Your pie is going to be better than ours." "Almost certainly." This time, his smile stayed until he reached the car. Caroline's small Thanksgiving involved 9 people, which was Caroline's definition of small and no one else's. Walter had invited a former co-worker named Sam and Sam's wife. Caroline had invited June, who brought roasted vegetables, and June had somehow invited Gwendolyn, who brought soup despite being told soup was not required. "There is always room for soup," Gwendolyn announced. "There is not," Caroline said. "That's why we're eating in shifts." I stood in the kitchen with my sleeves rolled up, automatically reaching for tasks. Caroline slapped my hand away from the gravy. "You brought 2 pies, cranberry sauce, rolls, and a jar of pickles no one requested. Walter likes the pickles." "I like them too," Walter said. "Stay out of this," Caroline told him. She pointed me toward the living room. "Go sit down. I can help. You are helping. You are demonstrating that the world continues to turn when someone else stirs. I don't need a lesson. No one ever does. That's why they arrive as annoyances." I sat beside June, who handed me a glass of wine. "Your sister has been preparing to boss you since sunrise," she said. "She's been preparing since 1959. At dinner, the table was crowded. We passed bowls over one another, knocked elbows, and put the soup tureen on a chair because there was no room left between the turkey and Walter's pickles. No one was displaced. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it until Caroline served pie. Then I checked beneath the table, feeling like a teenager. Daniel had sent a photograph. My blue roasting pan sat on Marjorie's stove holding a brown turkey. Behind it, Vanessa stood in an apron, giving the camera a tired thumbs up. "Not dry," he wrote. I replied, "Looks good. Let it rest before carving." He sent back, "I know." Then, a moment later, "Okay, I forgot, thank you." I smiled at the screen. Caroline noticed. "Daniel?" "Yes." "Everything okay?" "Yes." She nodded and did not ask to see the message. That restraint was so unnatural for her that it felt like a gift. Daniel called after 8. The dishes were done. Walter and Sam were arguing over a football game. June and Gwendolyn had left, and I was helping Caroline put leftovers into containers despite her repeated objections. "Happy Thanksgiving," Daniel said. "Happy Thanksgiving." "How was dinner?" Loud, crowded. Gwendolyn brought soup. "Who's Gwendolyn?" "A hydrangea thief." "Should I ask?" "Probably not." He laughed softly. Behind him I heard voices and the scrape of chairs. Vanessa said something I could not make out. Marjorie laughed. "Dinner was good," he said. "The turkey took forever. It was 16 pounds. "I don't know what that means. It means it took forever." "Vanessa made your sweet potatoes." "They are not my sweet potatoes." "They have your name on the recipe card. Your father wrote that. He misspelled Mercer. He also wrote a boat salesman's number on the back." Daniel went quiet, but it was an easier quiet. "I missed you today," he said. My hand tightened around the phone. "I missed you too. You could still come by. Everyone's here." "No. I've had wine, and I'm staying with Caroline tonight." "You're staying over." She turned the guest room into a storage closet. "I may be sleeping with a lamp. I could pick you up." The offer came too quickly. My old instinct was to accept it simply because he wanted to make it. "No, thank you." He sighed. Then he stopped himself. "Okay." That small correction mattered. "I saw the picture," he said. "The one by Dad's." "I know. I didn't understand how you could put it there if you were still this angry. I'm not asking one terrible moment to erase every good one. But you're asking us to keep looking at the terrible one." "Yes." "For how long?" "Until you can look at it without asking me to call it something else." He did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "I don't know how to do that yet." For once, he had not claimed he already had. "Then start there," I said. He did, not dramatically. There was no long letter or midnight arrival on my porch. 2 days later, he sent a message that said, "I've been thinking about what you said. I don't have a better answer yet." I read it 3 times. Then I wrote, "Thank you for not inventing one." He replied with a photograph of my blue roasting pan soaking in his sink. "This may take until Easter." That was how we began speaking again, around a pan with burned drippings stuck to the bottom. Daniel called the following Sunday and asked about the play I had seen with June. He did not know the title, the plot, or who June was, though I had mentioned her for years. "The neighbor with the overalls," I said. "The one who hates me? She doesn't hate you. She told me my parking was inconsiderate. Your parking was inconsiderate. I was unloading mulch. You parked across her driveway. For 10 minutes. She had to be somewhere. Where? Apparently not your concern." He laughed. It felt good. Too good. The sound made me want to declare the whole thing over and invite him for dinner. Instead, I told him about Gwendolyn and the liberated hydrangea. He called again 4 days later, not from his car, but from home. Vanessa was there. I could hear cabinet doors opening and closing behind him. "We're trying to decide whether a bread maker is a good Christmas gift," he said. "For whom?" "Evan." "You're giving him one of the wedding gifts. We have 3. Then it's practical." Vanessa says it's tacky. In the background, Vanessa called. I said transparent. "That is not better," I said. "I knew you'd take my side. I'm not taking your side. I'm protecting Evan from a transparent loaf of bread." Vanessa laughed despite herself. The sound came from farther away than Daniel's, but it loosened something in my chest. At the end of the call, he said, "We're having people over the Sunday before Christmas. Just drinks and food. You're invited?" "Who are people?" "Evan, Marjorie, and Paul, Denise, 2 friends from work. That sounds manageable. It may not be. I'll check my calendar." There was a pause. "All right," he said. He did not ask what else I could possibly be doing. My calendar was not empty. Gwendolyn's concert was the night before, and Caroline wanted help choosing a gift for Walter, who had requested nothing because he had already bought himself everything he wanted. Still, Sunday was open. I accepted. Daniel and Vanessa's apartment looked as if a department store had developed anxiety. Wedding gifts covered every surface. A crystal bowl sat on top of the television console. 6 unopened boxes were stacked beside the bookcase. Someone had given them a silver serving tray large enough to transport a roast pig. Vanessa met me at the door wearing black pants and a green sweater. Her smile was careful. "Merry Christmas, Ruth. Merry Christmas." We hugged. Both of us ended it too soon. I had worn Frank's mother's brooch on my coat. Not as a declaration, I told myself. It simply belonged there. Vanessa noticed. "That looks lovely," she said. "Thank you." She did not mention the wedding. Neither did I. The afternoon was pleasant in the way a room can be pleasant when everyone is carrying a glass and avoiding one loose floorboard. Marjorie hugged me twice. Lorraine was not there, which I suspected was not accidental. Denise gave me a candle that smelled like pine and apologized for having lost the ceremony program, though I had never accused her. Daniel kept finding reasons to stand near me. He asked whether I wanted more wine. He brought me a plate I had not requested. When every chair was occupied, he started to give me his. "I'm fine standing," I said. "I've seen what happens when you don't have a chair." The joke came out before he could stop it. The room went silent in an uneven circle around us. Vanessa looked down at the tray she was holding. Daniel's face drained. "Mom, I'm sorry. I could have rescued him." The old response was ready. A laugh, a touch on his arm, a remark about my feet. Instead, I said, "I know you are." Marjorie shifted a stack of magazines from the end of the sofa. "Sit here, Ruth." I sat. Conversation restarted slowly. Evan asked about the bread maker, and Daniel accused him of ruining his own gift. People laughed too loudly. Vanessa disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, I followed her. She stood at the sink arranging crackers on a plate that was already full. "Do you need help?" I asked. "No." She moved one cracker from the edge to the center. I didn't know he was going to say that. I don't think he knew either. Her eyes remained on the plate. He thinks if he makes a joke, it proves he understands. That sounds like Daniel. It's not funny to me. No, she looked up. Because you think I'm cruel. I think you did something cruel. That distinction seems very important to you. It is. Why? Because if I thought you were cruel, there'd be nothing to talk about. For an instant, she looked startled. Then Marjorie called her name from the living room, asking where the bottle opener was. Vanessa closed her eyes. "Third drawer beside the stove," I said. "It's our apartment." And yet, her mouth twitched. It was not forgiveness. It was not even peace. But when we returned to the living room, she carried the crackers, and I carried the napkins, neither one of us pretending the other had disappeared. January arrived with gray snow piled along the curbs. Daniel returned the roasting pan on a Saturday afternoon. He had scrubbed it so hard that the scratches shone silver through the blue enamel. "You removed part of the pan," I said. "It was either that or return it at Easter. Your father burned a ham in this. That explains the black spot." The black spot had historical significance. I destroyed an heirloom. It was $30. I'll put that in my will. He set the pan on the kitchen table. "Coffee?" I asked. "Yes." I filled the kettle. Daniel took off his coat and sat without waiting to be invited. There was no request attached to his visit, no errand besides returning something that could have waited. I brought 2 mugs to the table. For several minutes, we talked about nothing. The weather, Walter's new obsession with restoring an old radio, June's plan to replace the fence between our yards, which she had described as a bilateral infrastructure project. Daniel turned his mug in both hands. "I drove past twice," he said. "When? Just now? Why?" "I didn't know whether to come in. You could have called. That would have given me a chance to leave." I sat across from him. His wedding ring tapped the ceramic mug. "I keep thinking about the breakfast," he said. I waited. "Not all of it. One part." "What part?" "When Vanessa asked you to move." The kettle ticked as it cooled behind me. "You looked at me," he said. "Yes. I knew what you wanted me to say." My throat tightened. What did I want you to say? That you were staying, or that we'd move another chair? Anything. Why didn't you? He stared into his coffee. Because her cousin was standing there. Marjorie was already upset about the shuttle. Vanessa had been on edge since 5 that morning. I thought if I contradicted her in front of everyone, it would become a thing. It was already a thing. I know. He said it without argument. "I looked at you," he continued, "and I knew you were hurt. I knew before I said anything." Outside, a truck pushed dirty snow toward the end of the street. "Then you handed me my coffee," I said. "I did." "Why?" His mouth moved, but no words came. I almost helped him. I almost offered the answer he had used before. Tired, overwhelmed, trying to keep the peace. Daniel lifted his eyes. "Because I knew you'd go." The room seemed to contract around us. "You would be angry," he said. "You might cry later. You might tell Caroline. But you would move. You wouldn't embarrass me in front of Vanessa's family, and eventually you'd forgive me." He rubbed both hands over his face. "I made you the easiest person to hurt." I looked down at the table. There were scratches in the wood from years of ordinary meals. A pale ring from one of Frank's coffee mugs. A small burn near the center where Daniel once set down a hot casserole dish without a trivet. "I let you," I said. His head came up. "No." "I did." "No, Mom, don't do that. I taught you that I would absorb things. That doesn't make what I did your fault. I'm not saying it does. You are. You're trying to split it with me." The sharpness in his voice surprised me. He leaned forward. "I don't want half." I did it. My eyes filled before I could stop them. Daniel's did too. "I've been trying to make it about the wedding," he said. The schedule, the chairs, Vanessa's family. I keep thinking if I explain enough, then what I did will become understandable. I understand it. I know, that's worse. He looked toward the living room, at the photograph of us on the shelf. I was afraid of disappointing Vanessa, he said. I was more afraid of her family seeing us disagree than I was of humiliating you, because I thought losing your good opinion would be temporary. You thought I'd still be here. Yes, I am still here, I know, but not the same way. His face folded then, not dramatically, just enough that I saw how tired he was. I don't know how to fix that, he said. You don't fix it by convincing me it wasn't broken. He nodded. For once, he did not say he knew. We sat quietly until the coffee went cold. Then Daniel stood and came around the table. Can I hug you? The question hurt almost as much as the breakfast had. Yes, I said. He bent around me, his cheek against my hair. I held him tightly, but I did not tell him everything was all right. His coat was still draped over the chair when he let me go. Neither of us seemed sure what came next. Daniel wiped his face with the heel of his hand. I should probably stop crying before I drive. You can sit down. If I sit down, I'll stay for dinner. I have soup. What kind? From a can. That's bleak. It has noodles. He put his coat back on. At the door, he turned and looked toward the bookshelf again. I really am sorry. I believe you. The words steadied him, but they were not the absolution he had expected from me all his life. Believing his remorse did not remove the consequences of what he had done. I'll call you, he said. All right? Not because Vanessa is busy. The attempt at humor was gentle. That would be a refreshing change. He nodded and left. I watched his car pull away, then returned to the kitchen and touched the handle of the roasting pan. The enamel was cold. I had imagined his admission so many times that I expected relief to arrive with it. Instead, I felt hollowed out. Hearing him say he had known was worse than suspecting it. It also gave the wound edges. I no longer had to keep pressing it to learn its shape. Caroline called before dinner. Daniel visited, she said. How do you know? He called me. Why? To ask whether I thought you'd speak to him. What did you say? That you have a doorbell. I sat at the table. He apologized. Properly? He told me what he did. That wasn't my question. It was enough for today. She was quiet. Don't celebrate, I said. I'm not. You're planning to. I was considering a small banner. Caroline, I'm glad he told the truth, so am I. That does not mean you owe him instant access to everything. I know. I'm only saying, and I'm asking you to stop. The silence on her end sharpened. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. No. You're right. That answer surprised me almost as much as Daniel's apology. Caroline exhaled. I keep treating your relationship with your son like a leak under my sink. I want to crawl in there with tools. You don't own tools. Walter owns tools. Marriage is a shared resource arrangement. I need you to let me handle this. I will. You say that as if you're being sentenced. I am capable of growth while resenting every second of it. She kept her word more often than not. So did Daniel. He began calling once or twice a week. At first, the conversations had the careful quality of two people carrying a glass table up a staircase. We discussed weather, recipes, work, and whether the hotel's photographer had overused the color beige. When he disagreed with me, he paused afterward as if expecting the relationship to split open. Eventually, I said, "You can tell me the movie was terrible. You liked it. That doesn't make it good. I didn't want to start an argument. If we can't survive an argument about a movie, we've learned nothing." The ending made no sense. The ending was beautiful. The dog drove a truck. It was symbolic. Of what? Freedom. The dog had no license. We argued for 10 minutes. When we hung up, I realized I had not once measured my words against the wedding. Daniel asked before coming over. He accepted no without asking whether I was angry. When I said I had plans with June, He did not joke about being replaced by a woman in overalls. When we met for lunch, he put his phone face down and did not rush away as soon as the check arrived. The changes were small enough to seem unimpressive from outside. Inside our relationship, they were structural. Vanessa remained at the edges. She sent polite messages on my birthday and signed both their names to a bouquet of yellow flowers. At Easter, she hosted lunch at the apartment. The silver serving tray held deviled eggs rather than a roast pig. Every chair fit around the table, though Daniel checked twice before we sat down. "Stop counting," I whispered. "I'm not." "You're looking at chairs. I'm looking at furniture. You've never looked at furniture in your life." He gave me an embarrassed smile. Vanessa saw it. During lunch, Daniel kept asking whether I needed anything. Water, salt, a different fork. Finally, I said, "I'm fine." The words came out sharper than I intended. Vanessa set down her glass. A silence fell over the table. Marjorie began asking Paul about the weather even though they had arrived in the same car. After lunch, Daniel followed me into the hall while I put on my coat. "I was trying," he said quietly. "I know. I thought you wanted me to notice. I want you to notice. I don't want to become the emergency in every room." His face tightened. "I can't do anything right. That isn't true. It feels true." "Then stop performing the apology and live it." He looked past me toward the dining table. Vanessa was stacking plates. She moved quickly, jaw set. "She thinks I'm choosing you," he said. "Are you?" "No." "Then tell her." "I have." "Not about me." "Tell her what you're choosing." He frowned. "You're choosing to behave differently," I said. "That belongs to you. Don't put me between you and your wife. I'm not. You just told me what she thinks so I would help you manage it." His mouth opened, then closed. "Oh," he said. "Yes." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I hate when you do that." "Do what?" "Make sense at me." "That sounds like your father. Do not use him as a defense." The words were so close to something I might have said that we both smiled. Vanessa appeared in the doorway carrying my pie plate. "You forgot this. I was still wearing my coat." She handed it to me. Daniel looked from one of us to the other. "I'm going to take the trash out," he said. "You took it out 10 minutes ago," Vanessa replied. "I'll check on it." He escaped through the kitchen. For a moment, Vanessa and I stood alone in the narrow hall. "He told me what he said to you," she said. I held the pie plate against my coat. "At my house?" "Yes." "How do you feel about it?" She gave a short laugh. "Is that a real question?" "Yes. I feel like he decided your memory is the official one. There was one table. That's not what I mean." "I know." She crossed her arms. "He keeps replaying everything now. If I ask him to change a dinner reservation, he asks whether I'm making someone feel unimportant. If my mother calls while we're talking, he notices. He never noticed before. That sounds uncomfortable. You don't have to sound pleased. I'm not pleased. You got what you wanted. What did I want? My husband now analyzes every choice I make through one bad thing I did to you. Daniel is responsible for how he behaves. But this started because of you. No. It started because of what happened. That's a convenient distinction. It is an important one." Her eyes shone, though whether from anger or tears I could not tell. "Sometimes I think you wanted him to admit he picked me," she said. "He did pick you, and that hurt you. The way he did it hurt me." "What way is there? I'm his wife. Well, I never asked him to move you away from a table." She looked at me as if I had missed something obvious. "No," I said, "and if I did, I would hope he'd refuse." The kitchen door opened. Daniel returned with an empty trash bag in one hand. "The trash remains outside," he announced. Vanessa stepped away. I thanked them for lunch and left before either could turn the moment into another discussion. On the drive home, anger arrived first. How dare she call his remorse something I had done to their marriage? Then a quieter thought followed. Daniel had spent months locating his responsibility. Vanessa was watching him carry it as if I had handed him a weapon. I could understand that without putting it down for him. Spring loosened into summer. My calendar filled in ways I had not planned. June and I took a day trip to a lakeside town where she bought an iron bench that did not fit in her car. We drove home with the trunk tied shut and the bench legs pointing toward traffic like a warning. Gwendolyn persuaded me to join a monthly dinner group whose only requirement seemed to be strong opinions about parking. Caroline and I began going to a morning exercise class where she cheated during stretches and accused the instructor of unrealistic knees. Daniel remained part of my life, but he was no longer its automatic center. That change revealed things I had not wanted to see. I had used his calls to measure whether a week mattered. I had declined invitations because he might need me, then privately resented him for the empty evenings he had never asked me to preserve. Boundaries did not only expose other people's habits, they exposed mine. One Sunday, Daniel asked if I wanted lunch. "I'm leaving for a weekend at June's cousin's cabin," I said. "You hate cabins. I hate decorative signs that say, 'Cabin Life.' Every cabin has those. I'm preparing myself. When will you be back? Monday afternoon. I could come by Tuesday. What for? To see you." The simplicity of that moved me. "Tuesday is fine," I said. He arrived with sandwiches. Vanessa was working, but he mentioned that only after I asked. He stayed 2 hours. We discussed the cabin, his job, and a leak beneath their kitchen sink. He did not ask me to help solve it. As he was leaving, he said, "Vanessa is trying." "At what?" "I don't know yet. That may be between you and Vanessa." He nodded. "Right." A week later, she sent me a message. "Could we have coffee sometime?" I stared at it for half an hour before answering. "Yes. Tell me what day works." We met at a cafe halfway between our homes. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes early and had already chosen a table in the corner. When I walked in, she stood so quickly her knee struck the underside. Her coffee spilled into the saucer. For one absurd second, all I could see was my own cup in Daniel's hand. Vanessa grabbed napkins. "I'm sorry," she said. The words came out breathless. "I haven't even sat down." That wasn't what I meant. I lowered myself into the chair across from her. She wiped the table, folded the wet napkins, and placed them beside the cup. Her hands trembled. "I've practiced this conversation," she said. "That usually makes conversations worse. I know." The waitress approached. I ordered tea. Neither of us spoke until she walked away. Vanessa looked thinner than she had at Easter. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot and there was no makeup around her eyes. "I'm angry with you," she said. "That isn't the opening I expected. I thought if I said the apology first, I'd only be saying it so you wouldn't leave. I'm not leaving." "I know. That's why I asked to meet here instead of your house. I didn't want you to have to be polite because I was sitting in your kitchen." The thoughtfulness of that surprised me. "All right," I said. "Why are you angry?" "Because Daniel looks at me differently. That isn't something I can fix. I know." She said it with effort. "I'm angry because my mother apologized to you before I did. I'm angry because every time anyone mentions the wedding, I remember the worst part instead of the vows. I'm angry because you gotta be quiet, and somehow your quiet became louder than anything I said. I didn't choose that. I know that too." The waitress set down my tea. Vanessa waited until she left. "And I'm angry," she said. Because when Daniel told me exactly what he did, I realized I had been relieved. I held still. At breakfast, she continued. "When he asked you to move, I was relieved he didn't contradict me. I thought, thank God Ruth won't make this harder." Her eyes filled. "I knew you were hurt too," she said. The admission sat between us. Not an apology yet. Something harder. The truth before one. I wrapped both hands around my tea. "What did you think would happen after I moved?" I asked. "That you'd eat breakfast. Alone." "Yes." "And then?" Vanessa looked toward the cafe window. Cars passed behind her reflection. "I thought you would be quieter than everyone else," she said. "That isn't an answer. I didn't think past it." Her voice shook, but she did not look away again. I had my cousin and his wife standing behind me. My mother was moving her purse. The server said we couldn't add a chair where they were standing. I looked down the table and I decided you were the person least likely to object. You called it the family table. I know. Did you believe I wasn't family? No. Then why say it? Because I was talking to them, not to you. The answer was so ugly and so honest that I felt it in my chest. Vanessa pressed her fingertips to the wet napkins. I meant their seats at the family table were waiting, she said. But the second I saw your face, I knew what it sounded like. I could have corrected it. I could have moved with you or asked my cousin to wait while we found another arrangement. You could have asked him to sit at the small table. Yes. You could have done many things, yes, but you didn't. No. The cafe door opened, letting in a rush of warm air and traffic noise. A woman at the counter complained that her drink was supposed to be iced. The ordinary world continued while Vanessa and I sat over a spilled cup, naming the small decisions that had divided us for months. Daniel handed me my coffee, I said. I saw. Did that bother you? Not then. And now? Now I know he did it because he was afraid of me. The answer surprised me. Did he tell you that? Not in those words. He said he was afraid I'd make the whole morning a fight. Would you have? Her mouth tightened. Probably. I appreciated that she did not pretend otherwise. He was trying to protect the wedding from me, she said, and I let him because it felt like loyalty. It was loyalty. To me. Yes. I liked it. There was shame in her voice now, but no request that I comfort her. He chose me in front of everyone, she continued. For about 5 seconds, it felt good. Then you picked up your coffee, and I knew exactly what it had cost. Why didn't you come after me? I told myself you needed a minute. You told me later that you didn't have time to check whether I was comfortable. I lied. She said it plainly. I knew you weren't comfortable. I didn't check because then I would have had to do something. I looked into my tea. The bag had steeped too long, turning the water dark. What happened before breakfast? I asked. The reading, the brooch, the reception seat. Vanessa nodded slowly. I treated each one like a separate request. So did Daniel. I knew you would say yes. That became the reason I kept asking. There it was. Not that she hated me, not that she wanted me gone. Something more ordinary and, in its way, more dangerous. She trusted my love to make me convenient. I thought being easy was the kindest thing I could give you, I said. It was. Until I used all of it. The words silenced me. Vanessa wiped beneath one eye with her finger. I am sorry, Ruth. Not that you were upset, not that people found out. I am sorry I moved you away from the table. I'm sorry I used the word family when I did it. I'm sorry I saw that you were hurt and let Daniel make you responsible for keeping the morning pleasant. She took a breath. And I'm sorry I spent months trying to make your reaction uglier so my choice would look smaller. The apology did not change the cafe lighting. Nothing in me lifted cleanly into relief. I still remembered the service doors opening behind my chair and the waiter offering me bacon. But for the first time, Vanessa had placed the entire event between us without covering any part of it. Thank you, I said. She waited. I knew what she wanted. I also knew she was trying not to ask for it too quickly. I forgive you, I said. Her eyes closed. But forgiveness is not the same as going back. They opened again. I know. You and Daniel both depended on me returning to normal before anything changed. I won't do that. What does that mean? It means I'm not available automatically. It means I'm allowed to say no without proving I love you. It means if there is a conflict, you don't get to call me reasonable when what you mean is movable. Vanessa looked down. I've said that about you, she admitted. I know. Daniel told you? You did. At the reception. She tried to smile, then gave up. What if I make another mistake? You will. That's encouraging. So will I. I'm serious. So am I. I'm not asking you to become perfect. I'm asking you to stop believing my lack of noise means nothing hurts. She nodded. Then she said, "I'm afraid you'll always see me standing beside that table." "I probably will." Her face fell. "I also see you pulling me into the photograph with Daniel," I added. "Both things happened." She looked at me carefully. "Why did you tell me that?" "Because I don't want the worst thing you did to become the only true thing about you." Vanessa's mouth trembled. This time, when she cried, I handed her a napkin. I did not move to her side of the table. We stayed for another hour. The conversation became less graceful after the apology. Vanessa told me she resented the way Daniel compared every disagreement to the wedding. I told her that if she wanted him to stop, she needed to say so to him rather than to me. She said my calm voice made ordinary statements sound like verdicts. I told her I had been informed of that by several people, usually while they were losing arguments. When the check came, Vanessa reached for it. "I invited you," she said. "I can pay for my tea. I know you can." The answer mattered. I let her pay. Daniel called that evening. "How did it go?" "That is between Vanessa and me. She's my wife. That's why you should ask her." She said it went well. Then believe her. He was quiet for a moment. "Did she apologize?" "Ask her. This is very frustrating. It is also healthy." "According to who?" "People with degrees. You don't know any people with degrees in this." "I have television." He laughed. Then his voice softened. "Thank you for meeting her." She asked. "I know." It took her a long time. It took all of us a long time. After the call, I returned the brooch to its velvet box. I had worn it to the cafe, pinned beneath the lapel of my light jacket where no one else could see it. I had not planned that. At least, that was what I told myself. The months that followed did not look like reconciliation from a distance. There were no tearful family photographs or declarations over dinner. Vanessa began calling me directly instead of asking Daniel to relay invitations. The first time I declined, she said, "All right, maybe another day." No wounded pause. No explanation of how much effort she had made. I sat on the edge of my bed afterward, oddly shaken by the ease of it. She called again another day. Sometimes I went. Daniel stopped reporting the state of his marriage to me as if I were a weather service. When he and Vanessa argued, he said only that they were working through something. I stopped asking whether the something was me. In August, I hosted 6 people for dinner: Caroline and Walter, June, Gwendolyn, and Daniel and Vanessa. 6 was the number my table held comfortably. Daniel arrived carrying flowers. Vanessa brought a salad she had made herself, then warned us that the dressing might remove paint. Caroline took one bite and said, "It's assertive." "That means bad," Vanessa whispered to me. "It means she wants more bread." The dinner was not a test, though everyone treated it like one for the first 20 minutes. Daniel watched my face. Vanessa watched Daniel watching my face. Caroline watched all 3 of us and nearly injured herself with the effort of remaining silent. June saved us by announcing that the town had rejected her fence permit. "They claim it's 8 inches too tall." "It is 8 inches too tall," I said. "That is irrelevant to liberty." By dessert, Daniel and Walter were debating fences. Gwendolyn was describing a soup she intended to make with peaches. Vanessa was laughing with Caroline over the wedding candle Denise had given me. At one point, Daniel stood to bring another chair from the kitchen so he could move closer to the conversation. Vanessa glanced at me. I knew she remembered. She did not ask whether I was all right. She knew I was. That difference mattered too. September brought the first anniversary card from the photographer's studio, offering Daniel and Vanessa a discount on prints. Vanessa sent a picture of it to the family message with a joke about needing more beige photographs. I smiled, then closed the message. The anniversary had been waiting at the edge of the calendar all year. Daniel called one Sunday evening. "We're going back to the hotel," he said. "For your anniversary?" "Just one night." "That sounds nice." They offered us the same suite. Vanessa said no. "Why?" "She thinks the bathroom lighting was hostile." "That sounds like her." He laughed, then became quiet. "We want you to come for breakfast." I thought I had misheard him. At the hotel? Yes, on your anniversary. Sunday morning, not the whole weekend. Daniel. I know it sounds strange. It sounds staged. It is a little staged. I don't want to reenact something for a better photograph. No photographer. I don't want an apology breakfast. That phrase is upsetting. It should be. He breathed out slowly. We thought we could have one good memory there. You already have good memories there. You know what I mean? Yes. I looked toward photograph 37 on the shelf. I don't think I can, I said. All right. His answer came without pressure. That's it? I asked. You said no. I did, so I'm listening. The disappointment in his voice remained, but he did not use it against me. After we hung up, Vanessa sent one message. No one else knows we asked. There is nothing you have to prove. If you change your mind, we'll be at breakfast at 9. I did not answer. For the next week, I changed my mind twice a day. Caroline said she would support either decision, then ruined the statement by adding that she had several strong opinions available if requested. June asked one question. If it were a different hotel, would you want breakfast with them? Yes. Then decide whether you're avoiding the building or the people. That is irritatingly sensible. I contain multitudes. On the morning of their anniversary, I woke before the alarm. I dressed in navy slacks and a cream sweater, the same clothes I had worn a year earlier. I noticed only after I was dressed. For several minutes, I stood in front of the closet deciding whether to change. Then I opened the top drawer of the dresser and took out the velvet box. I pinned Frank's mother's brooch to my sweater, not beneath a lapel, where it could catch the light. The drive took a little under 2 hours. Autumn had begun turning the trees beside the highway. I passed the exit twice in my thoughts before reaching it once in the car. At the hotel, Henry still stood behind the front desk, still creating memories according to his name tag. He did not recognize me. That helped. I followed the signs toward the dining room. My steps slowed as I approached the entrance. Through the open doors, I saw Daniel at a small round table beside the windows. Vanessa sat across from him. There were 3 place settings. When Daniel saw me, he stood. Vanessa turned, then stood too. Neither of them waved me over as though the seat had always belonged to me. They waited for me to decide whether it did. I walked toward them. The dining room had not changed. The same pale carpet, the same brass light fixtures, the same service doors swinging open and shut along the back wall. Even the air smelled familiar. Coffee, syrup, and the faint chlorine scent that drifted in from the indoor pool. Daniel came around the table. I wasn't sure you'd come. Neither was I. He hugged me, but briefly. He did not hold on as if my arrival had settled anything. Vanessa waited beside the table. "Happy anniversary," I said. "Thank you." She hugged me too. When she stepped back, she noticed the brooch. Her eyes rested on it for 1 second, then lifted to mine. "It catches the light," she said. "It does. It looks beautiful. Thank you." 3 chairs surrounded the round table. One faced the windows and the lake beyond them. Another faced the dining room. The third had a partial view of the service doors. Daniel reached for that chair. "I can sit there," I said. "You can sit wherever you want." The answer was simple enough. I chose the chair facing the windows. Vanessa sat to my left. Daniel took the chair across from me, facing the doors. None of us mentioned the arrangement. A server arrived with a pot of coffee. "Good morning." "Are we celebrating something?" "Our first anniversary," Vanessa said. "Congratulations, and breakfast with my mother," Daniel added. The server smiled at me. "That deserves coffee, too. It deserves the whole pot." She filled my cup. Daniel watched me pick it up. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. You're staring." "I'm not." "He's staring," Vanessa said. "I'm appreciating the coffee." "You don't appreciate coffee," I told him. "You put vanilla syrup in it. People can grow." "Not that much." The exchange loosened us. Vanessa opened her menu. Daniel complained that the hotel charged $6 for orange juice. I reminded him that his father had complained about the parking. "He would hate this juice," Daniel said. He hated all juice unless it came with vodka, I replied. Vanessa laughed, then covered her mouth. What? I wasn't sure if I was allowed to laugh. Frank would have insisted. The server returned. Daniel ordered eggs. Vanessa ordered oatmeal, then changed to pancakes, then asked whether she could have fruit instead of potatoes. The server wrote everything down without displaying the slightest concern for Vanessa's revisions. I ordered toast, eggs, and bacon. Fresh bacon? I asked. It came out 2 minutes ago. Then I'll take 2 strips. Daniel looked at me again. This time, I understood why. I ate the bacon last time, I said. I know. You weren't watching. No. The word remained on the table after the server left. Daniel folded his hands. I keep thinking about what I should have done after you moved, he said. What should you have done? Gotten up? Yes. Even if I failed the first moment, I could have done better in the next one. Yes. I didn't. No. He accepted each answer without explaining himself. Vanessa looked toward the column that had hidden the little table. Someone had moved a decorative plant beside it, but I could still see one corner. I sat there for almost 40 minutes after you left, she said. Why? The picture took 10. Then everyone went back for coffee. You didn't know I'd left? Not at first. I thought you were in the lobby. When the photographer asked where you were, Daniel went looking. I called you, he said. I know. The bellman told me you'd taken a taxi. Luis. What? The driver's name was Luis. Neither of them knew what to do with that. He had a hula dancer on the dashboard, I added. She was very supportive. Daniel smiled. I'm glad somebody was. Vanessa looked down at her hands. I don't want today to replace that breakfast, she said. Good, because it can't. I thought I did when we first talked about coming here. I wanted a better version so badly that I was planning it like another wedding. Same time, prettier table, exactly the right words. What stopped you? Daniel. I looked at him. He lifted both hands. I'm as surprised as you are, Vanessa continued. He said if we needed you to react a certain way, then we were asking you to take care of us again. That does sound suspiciously thoughtful. I have been practicing, Daniel said. The food arrived. My bacon was fresh, the eggs were slightly overdone, and the toast came with 3 kinds of jam in tiny jars. Vanessa's pancakes were larger than her plate, which she regarded as a personal challenge. For a while, we ate. The lake beyond the windows was darker than it had been on the wedding day. Wind roughened the surface, turning the sunlight into scattered pieces. Why did you come? Vanessa asked. Daniel looked at her. We agreed not to ask that. I want to know. I almost didn't, I said. What changed your mind? June annoyed me. Who is June? Vanessa asked. The neighbor who hates my parking, Daniel said. She doesn't hate your parking. She hates you while you're doing it. That's much better. She asked whether I would want breakfast with you at a different hotel. Vanessa set down her fork. Would you? Yes. Her shoulders lowered. I realized I was letting this building make the decision, I said. I didn't want to do that. Daniel looked at the brooch. And the sweater? I didn't realize until I had it on. You wore that exact outfit? Yes. Why didn't you change? I almost did. Vanessa touched the chain at her neck. I changed my dress 3 times this morning. That sounds more like you. I brought 2 more in the car. Of course you did. She smiled. The dining room began filling as the morning went on. Couples came in wearing hotel robes beneath their coats. A group of golfers complained about the wind. A woman at the next table sent her eggs back because they were too yellow. Daniel poured more coffee for me without moving my cup. That mattered. He held the pot above the table and waited until I nodded. The sound of several familiar voices reached us from the entrance. Vanessa froze. Marjorie appeared first. She wore a red jacket and carried a gift bag. Paul followed with a small bakery box. Behind them came Denise and Lorraine, both talking at once. Daniel closed his eyes. You knew? Vanessa whispered. No. Marjorie saw us and lifted both hands. Surprise. Vanessa looked from her mother to the table. I watched the old calculation begin. 4 people, no empty chairs, open space near us, other tables that could be pushed together. Her eyes moved toward the dining room as if seeking a server. Then they stopped. She looked at me. Not for permission. To remember. Marjorie reached the table and kissed Vanessa's cheek. "We thought we'd surprise you for brunch." Paul picked up your favorite cake. "At 8 in the morning?" Daniel asked. "Cake doesn't know what time it is," Paul said. Denise pulled a chair from a nearby table. Vanessa put one hand on its back. "Wait." Denise stopped. "We're having breakfast with Ruth," Vanessa said. Marjorie blinked. "Yes, I can see that. We'll meet you in the lobby at 11. The silence that followed was not loud, but it had weight. "We drove all this way," Denise said. "I know. We can pull over a table," Marjorie offered. "There's plenty of room." Vanessa kept her hand on the chair. "This breakfast already has its guests." Her voice trembled slightly. Daniel said nothing. He did not need to rescue her from the discomfort of her own boundary. Marjorie looked at me. My oldest reflex rose. I could hear myself offering to leave or suggesting everyone join us or saying we had nearly finished. The words reached the back of my teeth. I swallowed them. Paul shifted the bakery box from one hand to the other. Then Marjorie nodded. "All right," she said. "We'll have coffee in the lobby." Relief crossed Vanessa's face, followed quickly by surprise. "You're not upset? I'm a mother. I can be upset and survive." She smiled at me. "I learned that recently." Denise did not look convinced. Lorraine took the chair from her and returned it to the other table. As they turned away, Marjorie noticed the brooch. "That's lovely, Ruth. It belonged to Frank's mother. I don't think I've seen it before. You almost did." Vanessa's face reddened. Marjorie looked between us, understood, and winced. "Well," she said, "I'm glad I'm seeing it now." They walked toward the lobby. Paul leaned close to Daniel as he passed. "I'm taking a corner piece of the cake." "You bought it," Daniel said. "That is not legal ownership under anniversary rules." Then they were gone. Vanessa sat down slowly. Her hands shook when she picked up her coffee. "You could have let them stay," I said. "I could have. You wanted to?" "I did. Your mother may complain about this until Christmas. She'll be done by Thanksgiving. Denise won't. Denise has been angry since the steamer." I laughed. Vanessa looked toward the lobby, then back at me. "That felt terrible," she said. "Yes. How do people set boundaries and enjoy it?" "They don't always. That seems like false advertising. The enjoyment comes later." Daniel reached across the table and put his hand over hers. "You did well," he said. "I made my mother eat lobby coffee. She brought cake." "She'll survive," I said. Vanessa looked at me. Neither of us smiled. For a moment, the full consequence of the past year sat between us. She had hurt me partly because disappointing her family felt impossible. Now she had disappointed them, and the ceiling had not fallen. Marjorie was 20 yards away, probably reorganizing the lobby furniture and telling Paul to stop opening the cake. Vanessa took a breath. "I'm glad you came," she said. "So am I." The words were true. Not perfectly, not without the memory of the other table. But truth did not have to be pure to count. We finished breakfast. No photographer appeared. No one asked us to prove what the morning meant by smiling into a camera. Daniel paid the bill before I could argue, then admitted the anniversary package included breakfast and he was pretending to be generous. Outside the dining room, Marjorie and the others had taken over a seating area near the fireplace. The cake box was open. Paul had already secured his corner piece. "We'll join you in a few minutes," Vanessa told them. Marjorie nodded. No scene, no punishment. Daniel, Vanessa, and I walked toward the lake. The wind had strengthened. Vanessa tied her hair back. Daniel shoved his hands into his coat pockets and complained that he had left his gloves in the room. Near the oak tree where they had exchanged vows, we stopped. The lawn was empty now. No white chairs, no flowers, just damp grass and leaves gathered around the roots. Vanessa slipped her hand into Daniel's. "We're having dinner Tuesday," she said. "Nothing special. You're invited." I thought about my calendar. Tuesday is exercise class. Wednesday, dinner group. Daniel raised his eyebrows. "You're very difficult to schedule. I've become dangerously available." "What about Thursday?" Vanessa asked. "Thursday works. 6:30? 7. 7, she agreed. No sigh. No reminder that they ate earlier. No assumption that my time would bend. We reached the parking lot. Daniel walked me to my car while Vanessa waited near the path, giving us space without disappearing. "You okay to drive?" he asked. "I drove here. That wasn't my question." "I'm all right," he nodded. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking." He opened his arms, then waited. I hugged him. As I stepped back, sunlight flashed on the brooch. Daniel glanced at it and smiled. Grandma would have worn that to breakfast with a bowling shirt. She would have. She also would have told Vanessa's family to find their own table. She was not known for tact. Maybe we needed her. "No," I said. "You needed to learn to say it yourselves." Daniel looked toward his wife. Vanessa was talking with Marjorie now. Her mother's arms moved as she spoke, but Vanessa stood still, listening without surrendering her place. "I'm learning," he said. "I know." He closed my car door. I started the engine, then lowered the window. "Daniel." He leaned down. "I missed you too." His face softened. "I know, Mom." This time he did. I drove away from the hotel with the lake shining between the trees. In the rearview mirror, Daniel walked back to Vanessa. She reached for his hand, and together they turned toward the family, waiting in the lobby. I did not need them to follow me. I did not need to follow them. Thursday at 7 was enough.